Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NXTGEN Racing GT3 Intercontinental Challenge Championship for 2021. And tonight marks round 2 of the 5-round calendar, as brought to you using the Assetto Corsa Competitione PC sim racing platform. Our schedule for tonight, times in Greenwich Mean Time and UTC, or GMT in short, is as follows. In just under 15 minutes, we'll be getting underway with the driver's briefing, giving the ins and outs to our drivers in terms of the rules tonight and what they need to obey with regards to things such as pit entry and pit exit and any other rules we have in place. And then straight after that, we'll be getting underway with the 15-minute qualifying session at 7:30 to see who will be on pole for our single race. And our single race, of course, coming straight after qualifying, that will be the 90-minute feature race, starting at 7:45 this evening and concluding at approximately 9:15, and that will be a race with strategy, tension, you name it, it's going to be in there. And then straight after that, we'll be heading to the podium and we'll be taking a look at our post-race podium interviews with our drivers who finish in the top 3. In the commentary box tonight, you of course have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And as for with regards to tonight's broadcast, you can tune in via one of 3 media platforms. As always, you can first off tune in via the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel. That's NXTGEN Racing on YouTube. Or alternatively, you can tune in via the NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. That is NXTGEN Racing on facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing. Last but not least, if you're inclined to use Twitch, you can always tune in using my personal Twitch channel, that is TX141 on Twitch. Now, going from the media outlets to our primary sponsors for this series, without them we'd not be able to bring you this series. It is the case we are sponsored by both the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy, and let's introduce them. So let's start off then with the SimGrid. The SimGrid is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competitione, and also quite recently expanding into the world of R Factor 2. But of course we're focused on ACC, and that's where we've got the SimGrid with us, and they've been supporting us in hosting this series, spreading the word of the series, getting it out there, but also providing us with a number of their highly talented and professional stewards who will be live stewarding and also conducting post-race stewarding over the course of the racing over the 5 rounds. And we're forever grateful to the SimGrid. And whether you're looking for an amateur league or a professional league, whether it's a paid or a free one or just a one-off charity race, go to the SimGrid today, because if you're on a Assetto Corsa Competitione or R Factor 2, it is the place to be on PC. Meanwhile, we also go to Coach Dave Academy, and Coach Dave Academy also supported us with regards to the running of this series, and they've been a backer of the previous European GT3 series, and we have them still with us as part of the Intercontinental Challenge Championship. And Coach Dave Academy is the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. And if you're interested, why not check out CoachDaveAcademy.com today to take your racing to the next level. Whether you're looking for a second lap, 1/10 of a second lap, alternatively just looking to find a way to better tune the car to suit your driving style, Coach Dave Academy is the place to go to, with setups, track maps and coaching sessions all in one. And with the recent updating of Assetto Corsa Competition, plenty more content's going to be coming out from Coach Dave Academy in the near future. And also, if you are an iRacer, if you're someone who races on the iRacing sim platform, which Coach Dave Academy has recently expanded into the iRacing platform, so there's plenty there for you to take a look at. But as we look away from our sponsors, who we are eternally grateful for, to our calendar. Last week, it was the season opener at Suzuka in Japan on the 23rd of November 2021, in a race that had it all. And whether it was a case of an absolutely dominant qualifying performance by our overall standings leader, or a case of mass tension in what was a 9-way battle for second place in the end when all was said and done. We had battles up and down the field and drivers getting to grips with one another in what was our 49-car field. And with a grand total of 43 drivers finishing, you can imagine that volume will carry on today. We head, speaking of today then, to South Africa for Kyalami. It's round number 2, the 30th of November 2021. And whereas our preceding circuit was a combination of 4 very different sectors, making for a very well-rounded circuit, Kyalami presents a very different challenge on a different continent. And that is, this circuit is all about apex speed, having a huge series of sweeping corners up and down the hill. It is the case that over the course of 16 turns, our drivers will be pushed to the limit in terms of their overall confidence and their ability to hold speed. Now coming away from the season ahead and the calendar to the standings after round number 1. So far we can see George Boothby leading the championship on 72 points with what was in the end quite a resounding win at Suzuka after the pit stops were played into effect. Now I can tell you straight away that George Boothby will not be joining us tonight for round number 2, and it's a rather poignant reason for those who do not know. He's expecting his first child as of tonight, so as a result we wish him and indeed everyone down in the paddock wishing Boothby all the best, and whilst we'll be missing him out on the circuit today, it'll be fantastic to hear everything go well with the arrival of his newborn child. And who knows, as well, the guys down in the paddock was joking, perhaps we're going to be seeing Boothby Jr. join us out on the circuit in the coming rounds. You never know. But that aside, that opens up an opportunity, of course, for our drivers outside of P1 and in the top 10 to have a great opportunity here to take the lead of the championship. Whether it be Luke Whitehead, who in the end came home in second place at Suzuka with an astounding turnaround on the strategy, which saw him jump up into second place, or Andres Mesa, who again on the strategy side turned around what was a top 5 finish into a third place, a third step on the podium in the end. Those two looking to be the strongest drivers, of course, to take over from Boothby's absence is felt. But then again, we also have Dylan Tan and Daniel Cherepin, both in contention for the top 5 currently there, and will be looking to try and make haste and gain some valuable points. At least one of them will target to get on the podium, if not both of them. Outside of our top 5, Harry Spears, with that unfortunate ending to his Suzuka race where the strategy did not play out well, plus instance with other drivers right at the finale, and indeed he will be looking to bounce back tonight, and I can imagine Spears will have the bit between his teeth to try and get the win, simply because he would have felt he was the major contender to take down Boothby at Suzuka. But then looking to Matteo Morano, Vasily Anufriev, Oleg Zalobov, and also Tino van der Velde, all those drivers are looking to make claims to get into the top 5, if not even higher. And it could not be even more tense outside of the top 10 as we look from 11th to 20th right now, with Konstantin Soldatov being the closest after our top 10 right now in the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage and putting a good performance at Suzuka, unfortunate not to achieve a top 10 finish. And as we go down there, we can see Leo Boulay in the McLaren having a difficult race after what was a reasonable qualifying session, the McLaren driver falling down the order over the course of the 90-minute race, and he'll be looking to bounce back tonight. Harry Phillips as well, finishing P16 in the end, a great drive from P34 of a disastrous qualifying session, but I think the Briton will realise that there's more to it this time, and qualifying is going to be absolutely critical in order to get the best possible result. And will we see the Briton have a stronger qualifying performance this time around, or will it be the case that instead he has to do another comeback from the back of the field? Looking outside of Harry Phillips, we can also see Cormac Ryan Meenan there down in P19, a difficult day at Suzuka. What has he got in the tank now at the South African circuit? And as we look beyond the top 20 then to our top 30, we can see Marcus Fox there. Quite a quiet race at Suzuka in the end, kept his head down and finished P21, but wasn't to be a strong one for him. Will he be able to turn the tables at Kyalami? And Lee King McGee as well in P26, the Bentley driver, indeed multiple Bentley drivers really struggling at Suzuka. Can they turn the tide at a much more comfortable circuit for the car, or will it be the case that they're still on the back foot? As we also see Rainer Effenstedt there down in P29 having a difficult day at the races as well. Outside of our top 30, looking from 31st to 40th, a number of our drivers here who weren't quite on the pace but still having some great battles amongst one another, none more so than Walter Lux in the end in the Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, who's looking forward to tonight, although it's a major unknown for Lux, and I'll tell you more about why he considers it to be a major unknown very shortly in round number 2. But Lux, also Haritojo, having great battles throughout the racing, and we can see further down there some of our slower drivers, but not to be forgotten about, at least at Suzuka they were slower, but they could come on stronger here today. Trond Øverland, and we've also got there Emil Blaine, Mike Crew and Cyril Pantera all completing our top 40 there, and all drivers looking to get a better result. And outside of our top 40, coming to our final set of drivers, out of our 49 drivers there, Nestor Magia having a reasonable start to his season, albeit plenty more on the table. Alexei Yujigov there having a difficult race, and we can also see Chris Zoiga there, who unfortunately due to technical issues was not able to take part in the race literally at the final minute. That was very unfortunate for the Swiss, and he will be looking to come on back tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to see him take to the circuit once again. Now, as for the circuit, well, we are at the Kyalami Grand Prix circuit, and with this circuit map as provided to us by the user Dr. Enslin from wikipedia.org, located in the Midrand Gauteng South African region, and it is the case that this circuit, as we previously said, very different from the Suzuka circuit we raced at last week. Whereas at Suzuka it was 4 sectors with each of a unique challenge, it is the case here at Kyalami. You can see based on the picture already that it does seem to be quite a high-speed circuit, starting from the start-finish line of course, and the long run down towards turn 2 at Crowthorne Corner, the hairpin hairpin style corner with a very heavy braking zone from a downhill coming out to the kink and all the way down to Crawford. You then got the sweep through turns 3 and 4 before heading up to barbecue corner at turn 5. And it is the case, whilst we've got quite a heavy braking zone at turn 5, that precedes one of the high speed sections of the circuit. The run from turn 5 all the way up to turn 10, climbing up the hill effectively through a whole array of corners, which are going to be testing our driver's ability to manage the car and manage understeer and oversteer in equal measure, where it be Sunset Corner, where it's all about balancing the throttle. Clubhouse, where it's a case about knowing how to trail brake into a very difficult apex. The S is where it's about braking before carrying the speed through 9, or going into Lukop at turn 10, where it's all about then turning the car around and making way downhill towards the finish line. From turns 11 through to 16, culminating, of course, in the combination of Cheetah and Ingwe. It is the situation there that those corners, very tricky. Cheetah, a very fast corner, all about avoiding an apex curve, which can launch the car into the sky. And in the Ingwe corner, it's all about bringing that momentum to a halt and making your way out of the final corner to do it all again, once again. Indeed, one circuit which is definitely going to throw up a mixture of results, we reckon. Now, as for our rules, we have the same rule set as per last week. In general, the balance of performance variant used for all cars featuring this series shall be the base 2019 variant. There are also 2 mandatory pit stops, which will require 1 litre of fuel to be taken on over the course of the pit stops. Changing tyres is entirely optional. And there's no defined pit window, so drivers may choose when to pit, and we did see that play out over the course of the 2 mandatory pit stops at Suzuka. Some drivers deciding to get their pit stops done back to back, some drivers extending the gap between them, and some drivers going for an in-between. We definitely reckon there is going to be a mixture of this tonight, and we'll have to wait and see how it plays out in that regard, as we are now just counting down the clock, ready to go. And as we look to our live pictures right now, it is the case as we look to the circuit. You can see, ladies and gentlemen, it's not sunny in South Africa. The rain is coming down, and this is only going to make things more difficult. As the camera focuses in on Whitehead, Luke Whitehead there in P2 in the championship right now, and P3 in this final practice session in the Porsche 911, and Whitehead in a very unique situation right now. And the reason we say that is because technically he is the favourite to take over the championship lead with the absence of Boothby, but will he be able to, or will it be the case that we see another driver take on that mantle? And of course there are plenty here to do so. As we look down, and we also see Dylan Tan here making his way around. We look for the Ferrari driver. He's gone a bit wide there as he now re-emerges onto the circuit, and you'll notice that we have fixed a number of the livery issues that were present on the cars, and pretty much everybody's liveries should now be accounted for. And we're just under 3 minutes until we get the driver's briefing underway. One thing to point out to everyone: as of earlier this week, it was the case that Assetto Corsa Competitione went live after a number of updates and hotfixes. It went formally live with update 1.8, which has seen a complete overhaul of the game's physics engine. It is the case now the tyre wear model has changed, the physics engine has changed, and the overall thing we're hearing down in the paddock is it's much harder to push a car on edge for a constant period of time. It's the case you can push a car hard, but you are going to take life out the tyres more rapidly, and it's the case that tyre pressures now are much more sensitive in general. Now, what does that mean for our drivers? As we ride on board here briefly with the Ferrari driver as he makes his way through the corner, well, it does mean for them that now they do have to manage the car a little bit more, and it means that everybody is going into an unknown. And I should point out, nobody has been allowed to change their car over the course of the gap between rounds 1 and 2. Everybody has had to stay with the car that they picked going into the season. So as a result, there's no swaps, there's no pick backsies. It is the case that everybody will have to manage their car now that we have had the update come. And will we see that for a spanner in the works of some drivers who felt rather comfortable? We will have to wait and see. But indeed, if anything is for certain, this race is going to be unpredictable. And with the rain that has been forecast, and we do believe the rain may disappear at some point based on our local radar, it could be the situation right now that this race sees our drivers make more than 2 pit stops in order to get off wet tyres and onto slicks. But we will wait and see whether that is the case, as we're now building up to the drivers briefing. It'll be coming up very soon, ladies and gentlemen, within the next 2 minutes, as we check to you guys and girls in the chat. And we can see Governor ITR there in the Twitch chat saying, let's do this. Indeed, Governor, and I'm sure your drivers today will be looking forward to taking to the circuit, as we see Kevin Gedlin here from the Intruder Racing team, one of the many ITR drivers here making his way around. And I believe now we are going to make our way into the driver's briefing room. So we are just going to look away from the cameras very shortly and make our way in. And this time I'm making sure not to deafen people when I'm in the room. But we are now just waiting for Kevin Smith to arrive. He is, of course, our lead organiser for the series, and he will be getting us underway with the rules, what's right and what's wrong. As we are just waiting for Kevin Smith to jump into the room. He should be in any moment now. Everybody is piling in. And here arrives Kevin Smith. I believe he's just going to be locking the door in the metaphorical driver's room in the Discord chat that we use here. And you'll hear his dulcet tones very shortly.
Good evening everyone, and welcome back for round 2 of the Intercontinental Championship. We are set for a very unpredictable night in terms of weather. Of course, as most of you know, the server's been wet, dry, a bit of both in between sessions. So we shall see how it goes, and of course if it's wet, just please bear in mind your braking distances and stuff like that, guys. A couple of things to go over. Pit entry, please keep on the outside line coming round that corner into the pit lane. Of course we don't want anyone cutting across the track, especially as it is quite a fast little section up to the final hairpin. Pit exit as well, we would also like to ask you to stay behind the white line. Of course, for obvious reasons, we don't want anyone cutting out the white line before pit exit, just to avoid any accidents, as well as drivers are at full speed coming down that straight. Qualifying, there is no return to garage to be used. The only time you can use return to garage is if the car's undrivable. Stewards will be checking as well if you use it, or if you've passed the pit limit line you can then return to garage. That's absolutely fine. In terms of racing last week, it was absolutely brilliant, guys. We'll be live streaming again, of course, and post-race appeals will go out after. The results are up from last round if anyone hasn't seen them yet. And please remember, Killian Ryan Meenan has a qualifying ban along with Alex Kopstov. This is due to not being able to serve penalties last week when found at fault for an incident. And I believe that is it, everyone. If anyone has any questions, please let us know. Please put them in the general chat as soon as possible, and I'll get these answered for you. If not, good luck, have a good race, guys, and keep it clean.
Am I right that RTG is not available again?
He literally just fucking said that.
You're all free to leave the room, guys, if there's no questions. Good luck.
So just the one question there from what was Alexei Yegidnov to say, are we allowed to use RTG? And I was just typing to clarify there is no RTG unless you are already in the pit lane. So we look back to our live pictures right now, ladies and gentlemen. We make our way back on over, and it is the case that now we are just waiting to go racing. And we are only moments away, less than a minute away before we kick off with the qualifying session. And indeed, it is going to be a very tight one. And with these conditions and the rain, we've got cloud over the circuit. Now, the circuit is wet, but in the next 30 minutes, we're going to have more rain coming on in. You can imagine that anything can happen over the course of the qualifying session and the race. It makes it very unpredictable. And to be fair, that is one of the things that was updated in the most recent update of what was Assetto Corsa Competition, as we do unfortunately seem to have a slight issue with one of the liveries there of Leo Belay, so we will need to get that fixed for next time out, but we can just see that. But indeed, a number of liveries have these issues every so often, but it's one of those cases. Well, I think it's going to be highly unpredictable weather all the way through, and that was one of the things that came in the update as well. Weather predictability has been minimised, so as a result, excuse me ladies and gentlemen, 2 seconds, we're just having to deal with a slight technical issue with the server. Give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a slight technical issue. We will be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Apologies for those slight issues. It was the case that we just had to resolve something technical in the background with regards to the server, but we are now back and into the qualifying session. You haven't missed much. We're only 3.5 minutes into qualifying, and we're just waiting for our drivers to put in their opening flying laps. But it could be all the case that with the fact that we've got the rain coming down right now, and within the next 10 minutes we're expecting the rain to get heavier. The circuit is currently damp. It's not for wetness. It's a situation where our drivers will be needing to get in those laps sooner rather than later, and we can already see some times coming in with Cherepin in here already putting in his opening lap, which was a 1:47.0 as our drivers make their way around on the circuit right now, and we can see the S&P Racing eSport driver here making his way uphill. Now with regards to those tuning in and saying that might be some liveries that are not working, as we see Cherepin in here getting it very wrong in the run up through turn number 3 there. I believe it is the case we're going to have to do some more fact finding with some liveries post race today. There have been changes to liveries as a result of the most recent update as well. Some of the way we have to run liveries has been modified, but it does look as though we've got a couple of broken ones and then some fully working ones, which is unfortunate, but we will try and get those fixed again, as it does appear those issues are re-materialising. Apologies for that. But right now, as all those times are coming in, we can see it's Cherepin in right now with the fastest lap so far, 47.057, and a bit further down we can see Zabolov here in P3 right now with what is a it's a 1:47.3, just in fact 1:47.4 all said and done, as he makes his way on up the hill once again. As we look a little bit further down, and we can see in the chat there Emil Blaine cheering on what is Sørensen. And Blaine, we do have to ask, why are you not out on the circuit, my friend? We would expect both of you to be out on here today. You are being missed, but it is the case. As we continue to look around, we can see your teammate, the Nordic Racing team driver Sørensen, right now in P18, doing a good job in the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage as he makes his way into the ascent, coming up right now through the corners and into the left hand of what is turn number 5. Now as he makes his way on through here, a bit of traffic ahead of him right now, everybody trying to get their place out on the circuit, and it is one of those cases where they've got to try and find a way on through in terms of placing themselves well and setting themselves well up for qualifying as they continue to make their way on round. And as our drivers continue to do so here, I think also one of the biggest challenges will be they need to get those qualifying laps in as soon as humanly possible, because if they're not able to, then it will be one of those situations whereby they will be starting to feel the pinch in this qualifying session. As we look a bit further down, we can see Mikel Rattel here down in P24, the Cosmos Racing team driver, making his way on through the right hand there of turn number 15 and coming down 16 very shortly as he makes his way down. And we can see Sorry Design there saying there she is in the YouTube chat, and I do believe maybe referring to one particular driver in all, and I'll be interested to hear who that is. And I see playing a job interview in the morning, 300 kilometres away from home. Well, good luck to you as your teammate makes his way on round still in the number 587 car. Now, as we look further up the front, once again here, we can see it's the case that Cherepin right now still holding on to that fastest lap in the McLaren here, making his way on up, and that fastest lap, 47.0, a good lap. But I do wonder whether we're going to be seeing any 46s here in these rather challenging conditions. And Cherepin with what was a difficult qualifying session back at Suzuka, really shining where others are faltering right now as he makes his way on down the drop here, coming all the way down through turns at 12 and 13 very shortly. But meanwhile, we see down in P13 right now, it is the case that Harry Phillips making his way around through the circuit as he comes down through the left into right combination here, culminating turn 10 at the very end of it. He's coming out of turn 8 right now through the S's and up into 9 before turn 10, and it looks like Phillips doing everything he can to try and get it right this time around, not wanting to start outside the top 30 for sure, and trying to get himself into that top 10 into that point of contention as he makes his way down the hill here once more. And meanwhile, we look further around, and it's the case that Benjamin Asseli right now coming through the left hand there of turn number 2, I believe the Frenchman in the Cosmos Racing team machine. As he comes through 2 and up into 3 here, just doing everything he needs to right now to stay within the top 30. Can he get himself a bit higher? Currently 3.4 seconds off of our pole lap. And indeed, a lot of drivers really starting to struggle in these conditions, as we have got the rain now really starting to build up. And I suspect we may start to see those qualifying times get longer. And as a result, we won't see too many improvements here, because we're going from a damp circuit now to one that is rather wet. And it could be the case that qualifying has been done within the opening 5 minutes. in terms of people making major wholesale improvements, but we'll have to wait and see. Of course, our drivers will be switching on to those wet tyres when they feel it's the right time to, but this is a very tricky situation for everybody involved, as really it's one of those cases where they needed to act fast, and none and more so as we see Chris Zoiger returning to the race, and the CHF Motorsport driver here from Switzerland finally returning to the circuit as part of this series after missing out on round number 1 and already putting in a good qualifying lap of what was a 1:48.247, 1.2 seconds off the pole right now, and he's still got 6 minutes to go, but I think it's going to be very difficult to improve for the Swiss, indeed for everyone, as he now begins to make his way through the left hand there at turn number 5 and head on down towards the S's. But as he comes on down, we can see down in P19, meanwhile, we have got Giovanni Izzo here for the Cortec Racing 1 team, and as he makes his way through the sequence of corners, I think the Italian here, as he comes through what is the right-hander of turn number 6, and making his way up into the S's very shortly. It's the case that Izzo looking smart right now, but just inside that top 20. Can he hold on? That is the big question, or will he fall further down the order? We will have to wait and find out as he makes his way there through the left into right combination of the S's, and now breaks his way on down the hill once more. As he comes on through here, it's the case that for Giovanni, he will be thinking, what can he do to improve? Well, I don't think there's too much he can do right now, whereas we're just waiting to see if any more laps really come in to shake up the order. Nothing at the moment, as meanwhile a little bit further down we see Meher Haritojo here in P21 I should say, not P11, and it's the case that the Cosmos Racing Team driver here making his way through at the left-hander, and as he comes on through and around, you see the rain building up on the corners, and as a result, as he comes down through 10 and 11 and now makes his way down the hill, it will be the situation where the Cosmos Racing Team driver will try and carry as much momentum as possible as he gets dropped to P22 as somebody else improves, and I believe it is the case that we've just seen Tinko van der Velde here improve to P13, and the Team Tonki driver, they're going into turn 2, and as he makes his way on through a green flag waving for somebody that was off recently, but the Dutchman are now trying to push even further. As we see, it's the case, and no major improvements at the moment, although I say that it looks though Ivan Shermatinsky has just improved to P6, and he's now back on an outlap here. The S&P Racing eSport driver making his way on around, so the Bentley driver here getting it right as he makes his way down the hill, and Shermatinsky, we didn't see too much of him in terms of in the top 10 last time out until it really mattered at Suzuka, but he's doing it very rapidly today and getting himself right into the mix. And could this be a good qualifying session for Shermatinsky? Well, I think based on this current trajectory, yes, it's going to be, as we see Whitehead, Zabolov and also Field into the pits, P2 through its P4 in terms of the provisional qualifying standings, all into the pits, and Shermatinsky going wide there at turn number 15, unsettling the car, and now we are going to ride on board with the Bentley driver as he takes you around for a lap of Kyalami in the wet. So emerging from turn 16 there, making sure to keep the throttle fully in as he charges across that timeline. He heads all the way down to turn 2, started with the right-hand kink at turn 1. All the way down the hill he goes, building up to the maximum possible speed and coming down hard on the brakes. That 100-metre board here, aiming for that apex, pointing the car in and wanting to get on the power as soon as he clears the midpoint. And as he exits now and goes up through the right-hander of 3 here, building up the climb here and going into turn number 4. A heavy braking zone here and wanting to get on that power and use the width of the circuit as well in order to extend his acceleration zone as he now makes his way down towards turn number 5. The long right hand here, a quick dab of the brakes as he passes the 50-metre board, and as he does, balancing the throttle, trying to keep it as tight as possible to the curbing, and as he gets back on the throttle here, full of confidence, now come up into turn 6, braking just after the 50 board here, and as he makes his way into left-hander, balancing the car on that curb, and as he exits, now getting a bit of spray off the Ferrari in front of him as he comes through the S's, turns 7 and 8, braking for turn 7, and then getting on the throttle as soon as he feels the nose bite into the apex of 7 and swinging the steering wheel to the right to come charging through turn 8, and up the hill he continues here as he goes through 9 and up into the braking zone of turn number 10, coming down hard on the brakes here and looking for that late apex, and you can see just a little bit of wobble on the front of the car as he now begins to drop, and coming down through 11 here we can see the Ferrari head moving out the way on and off lap, and as he comes down through 12 he's going to be flat out through 12, attacking the corner as much as possible, the car unsettling there in the drop with the puddles on circuit, as he now comes into 13, braking hard hard once again through the right hand. You can just see the understeer where he hasn't quite got the grip in the wet compound as he makes his way now through into turn number 15. And as he comes through 15, it's one corner awaits him here. A heavy braking zone into the final corner, into Ingwe corner. And as he makes his way through here, a nice early apex stamp on the throttle as he exits and avoiding that exit curve there due to the water, the standing water. But as he crosses that timeline, it is going to be a case he does not improve. He's off by 1.9 seconds, and I do think it's the case that with all the rain we've got on circuit, this qualifying session for most of our drivers is done and dusted in terms of improvements. I don't think we're going to be seeing many more improvements later on in this qualifying session as all of our drivers continue to make their way around. But right now it is looking as though Cherepinin has got the job done as he makes his way through turn number 2, and we can see the Joker's esports machine behind him of Ivan Fornes there in the Aston Martin Vantage V8 coming through at the left hand of turn number 4, looking very smart. And he's currently only P24, and indeed after what was a brilliant qualifying session and seeing him contending for the top 10 throughout Suzuka, Fornes this time really struggling at Kyalami. And indeed we are seeing a huge shake-up in terms of our order over the course of the proceedings as he makes his way now through turn number 6 once again, and we've only got 45 seconds of this qualifying session to go. I think for all of our drivers here, it's one of those cases whereby, as we see Fornes there get it very wrong, cut straight across the S's. That will be an aborted lap and a car that's on its way to go off circuit even more. And once you lose control in these wet conditions, it's the case the car can turn into a bullet and you've got to try and stop it. But meanwhile, as he gets it wrong, it's the case that just holding on to the final place in the top 10 right now is the Team Ballers Esport Bentley of Mattia Vaca as he makes his way down the hill once more here and heads down towards turn number 2. Into that heavy braking zone he goes on his final qualifying lap right now. But if anybody can improve here, I think it's the case that Cherepinin's just got the job done early, as we see Whitehead as a Voloff field and DeMarco all into the pit, so none of our top 5 will be contesting that pole. As we see in the rear view picture there, we've got one, I think it's the Dragon Esports Aston Martin going sideways behind Vaca as Vaca makes his way up towards turn 5. The checker flag is out right now. Cherepinin's into the pit. Have we got anybody else making their way around? Well, Sheventensky's just come across our timing line as we see Vaca carrying on. We've got a Ferrari way with there, and meanwhile it's the case that Raymond Mooney in the Porsche here, what is the sim racing masterclass Scotsman Mobile, as he makes his way down turn number 12 here. Will it be the case that Mooney's able to improve? I think it's going to be a very tough order here. I mean, P8 in itself will be a significant achievement for him, but I do think it's going to be also one of those situations where he'll be asking himself what if, because Mooney, quite a strong driver we saw at Suzuka, but just wasn't able to perhaps get the result he wanted. And as he makes his way out of 15 and into 16, will he be able to improve here? I think it's going to be a tall ask to try and improve now, but as he comes out the final corner, he uses the full width of exit. He's got the run to that start-finish line to contend with, and he crosses the line. He does not improve. In the end, he misses out by a 1/10 and a half. So Mooney not improving as we've got more drivers making their way around, and I believe Andres Mesa just coming down the hill right now. The Spaniard, he's got traffic ahead. I believe that's Walter Lux's TUG Racing Esport Ferrari there, and Mesa going sideways as he moves out the way for what I believe is Nembrini coming through. Christian Nembrini there in the Cortec Racing machine coming down through the right-hander at turn number 15, going wide as well and into the pits. Well, that means, ladies and gentlemen, when all is said and done, so I think everybody has finished their qualifying laps, it is pole position goes to Daniil Cherepinin from Russia, the S&P Racing Esport driver in the end, taking pole by only 700ths of a second over Luke Whitehead. Now, Whitehead, you can see here, well, in fact, he's clipped inside a Ferrari there. That's because of some technical issues with the server, but it's a case that Whitehead is inside that Ferrari. He's in a Porsche, but the two are moulded together. And in third place has gone to Oleg Zabolov, but a brilliant qualifying session for Cherepinin. And indeed, in the end, it was all done and delivered in the opening 5 minutes before the rain arrived. And that means now, as we just wait the final 20 seconds before we transition over to the race, it's going to be now a case of how will the conditions evolve over the course of the 90 minutes of racing. So I think a lot of drivers here are out of position in terms of qualifying. And to give you an idea of one driver who is massively out of position compared to what we saw at Suzuka, Kevin Gelling in the end at P22, as we now get ready to go racing. As we're just waiting for the switch over, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to go racing as we clear the screen. And we see some stop and go penalties for some of our drivers as well here. So it is the case that some drivers will have stop and goes to to complete. And I believe these are penalties from qualifying, although I'm waiting for confirmation of what exactly has happened there. But it's the case right now that some drivers are going to be feeling the pinch from that massively in terms of getting those stop and go penalties in qualifying. But we will wait for the confirmation as to what exactly that is all about. But right now, as we are waiting to go racing here, and it will, of course, be the opening double file. It'll be the opening double file racing start. It'll be the manual double file racing start, of course, dictated by our pole man. We will have the one warm-up lap that precedes all of our race proceedings. And as we take a look around right now, and we look into the chat here, we can see Matt Emmons there in the Facebook chat saying hello, and hello to you, Matt. Hope you're doing well. And we are just checking in to see if there's any last words with regards to these penalties that have arisen. But as we now wait to get underway, we're not hearing anything else. The only thing we are hearing is that Alexei Yegorov is having some difficulties in getting out of the pits, and that is very unfortunate for the driver. I believe he is currently stuck in the pits. I think it's going to be one of those situations. Can he get the car launched before we get racing? Well, he's got 3.5 minutes, otherwise he will be starting from the back. He'll be starting from the pit lane, and that's very unfortunate for the Armentero red driver. They'll need to get that car sorted as soon as possible. But meanwhile, as we look back to the grid right now, it is going to be one of those situations where I think our pole sitter is going to feel he's in a unique position for this series, starting on pole. And can he get the job done and hold on to the lead after the opening sequence? Of course, that massive run down towards turn 2, which it's the case that Whitehead, Zavola, Field, DeMarco and Shebatinsky will all try to capitalise on. And we have that huge concertina effect as well down into the opening hairpin corner. Can Sherapinin hold on to that lead? And meanwhile, we were going down the paddock, and I've yet to have any confirmation, Governor ITR, in the Twitch chat as to why the penalties. I am waiting on that confirmation. As soon as I get anything, I will let everybody know. But whilst we are waiting, it is the case that we're not hearing anything at this time. I've got to presume it's penalties for track limits in qualifying, but even then I am not sure. As soon as I know, I will tell you. As we see, well, I can't quote that username back in the YouTube there, but it's the lead part of the username is sick, and then we'll have to fill in the rest. Well, you guys and girls have to fill in the rest, but saying let's go Krivets. And well, Krivets, well, he's had a bit of a difficult qualifying session, as we also see Christian Krivik here all the way down in P21, the Dragons eSport driver, who we saw going very sideways out of turn 3 in qualifying, and he with that stop and go 10-second penalty, which it's very unfortunate that he's got that. It's going to be heavily compromising his race. If I am able to find out what that is for, I will let you know, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, some drivers I did have the chance to catch up with in the build-up to tonight's proceedings. I started off by having a chat to Walter Lux, and I did mention about him earlier on. Well, Walter Lux was saying to me, the P29 driver who we're inboard with right now, the GT Racing eSport driver, he was saying that with regards to tonight, it's going to be a case that he's had no time to practice, plus the combination of that and a new game update and raining conditions at Kyalami is going to make it the worst possible scenario that he could ever imagine. Well, how will the Austrian get on? How will he adapt? He's looking forward to the race. He expects it will be fun, but can he pull off something from P29 on the grid? And meanwhile, for Nestor Magia, the El Salvadorian here starting P40, the Ectempo Rasket racing machine, racing under the American flag, but from El Salvador, it will be the case that for the Aston Martin driver, it's his first time at the track and in the wet as well, and he's hoping not to be lapped multiple times, unlike at Suzuka. He hasn't had too much practice, but it's a learning race, and he hopes to maintain consistent pace throughout. That will be his target. And indeed, for a number of our drivers further down the field, they will be looking just to keep their head down and get on with the job. None more so than Magia, but also drivers such as Mike Crute starting P33. A good qualifying session for Mike, as we are just trying to pan the camera around to him, but can't quite see him. But the helicam, unfortunately, is able to, well, fortunately I should say, rather than unfortunately, is able to give us that perspective. But Crute there in the SAS racing machine starting at P33. He's got alongside him Lee King Magie in P34. We can see him there parked alongside in the Bentley, and I think Crute right now will be thinking just upwards and onwards, putting another good result here after what was a difficult race at Suzuka. And I think it might have knocked the wind out of his sails a little bit to see that on his opening race. He was quite a bit off the pace, but I'm sure he will bounce back. But speaking of bouncing back, it's the case that now we look to the front of the field, and will this man, Chris Zuga, be able to bounce back after not being able to start in race number 1? Well, we'll find out, as we are now waiting for Daniil Sherapinin to take us away for the formation lap. And as they all pull off their line and make their way down and around the circuit right now, it's one of those situations we look to the radar and we can see in the next 30 minutes we are not expecting any rainfall. It is cloudy with an ambient temperature of 22 degrees centigrade. 29 degrees centigrade is the track temperature. It's 3:05 in the afternoon local time, and we will expect that temperature to gradually drop over the course of the hour and a half. But the question will be, will we see more rain? We had that unpredictability in qualifying, we had the unpredictability in the final practice session, and it has set us up for what is expected to be an absolute cauldron of racing. But will it all play out that way, or will we see calmer conditions, and will we see everything settled down? And if we know one driver who is very fast off the start, we saw that in the European GT3 Series Season 1, the Intruder Racing Team driver here, Vesfield, he will do everything he can, I'm sure, to get himself up into the lead at the start, because we know that once he gets up there, he will not let go of it. He will fight tooth and nail to hold on to that lead, and he also has that strategy element in his favour. And as we look further down right now, we see Tinko van der Velde here making his way along in that P14 position, and behind him Marcus Fox and Harry Phillips, of course. And what we're going to be doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is you can see the overall standings chart on the left hand side. We are going to keep that on screen so you can see more of the drivers' positions. It means it's not quite a live timing, it will only update sector after sector, but we will use that to give you a good idea of where everybody is, and that's based on the feedback we received from you guys and girls after round number 1, as all of our drivers continue to make their way on through. And as they do right now, we see Pavel Pushkarev here down in P30, Armatera Red Machine, the Russian driver here, coming up towards what is turn number 5 and 6. And as he makes his way on through, he's got quite a bit of soul searching to do going into this race to try and find his way up the order. But indeed, plenty of opportunities here, and it's the case that we're just waiting to see how it all plays out. And I can tell you that with regards to, we've got 2 drivers starting from the pit lane. Well, I think we've got Alexei Yudikov here, who is still stuck in the pits, and Killian Ryan Meenan starting from the pits as well, the FFS Racing driver here, and the Irishman starting from the pit lane. And I think, well, he wasn't allowed to qualify, so he's decided to do the entire start from the pits in order, I think, just to stay out of trouble. But meanwhile, as we look back to the drivers making their way around right now, we can see Dylan Tan here, the Legion of Racing driver, making his way through turns 11 and 12 as he comes on down the hill here. And we can see everyone now scrambling to get into formation as we've only got the final third lap to go, and now they all begin to cluster together as we see Cherepinin here, the lead driver, and indeed trying to get everyone to get a move on here, trying to keep that temperature in the tyres. And that's the horrible part when you're at the head of the pack, is the thing is that whilst you are going to dictate the pace at which you go round, at the same time, if you've got some slow coaches at the back of the field, and with a 40 plus car field, you can imagine some of the guys that may be taking some time to get into formation, it will cost him some tyre temperature right towards the end of this warm-up lap as they make their way down towards the final corner right now. And we look back to the helicam as they make their way on through, and we wait to go racing. It's lights out and away we go for round 2 of the Intercontinental Challenge Championship, and immediately Whitehead on the offensive here as he goes to the outside down into turn 2, and Whitehead wanted to get this done early. You can see in the attitude of the car behind you got Field trying to go around the outside as well as Zabolov as they make their way through the hairpin corner. We've got a car parked on Apex there, and that is the FFS Racing Ferrari. We've got further contact further back as we can see it looks as though a Bentley's been knocked wide. Andres Mesa also in that mix as we see there. That looks as though it's Surison getting involved, and we've got a Cortec machine in a side-by-side moment there, and a collision going up into turn 4 as we see Dan Mori getting it very wrong as well on the exit of 4. And as they now make their way up into 5, they all begin to settle down, but not without some carnage. We see Waterlux already with a drive-through penalty. I believe that's a poor position at the start as our timing screen is beginning to be updated. But meanwhile up front, you have to say that Daniel Sherepin has held on to the lead as Whitehead was not able to take the lead and capitalise, and Sherepin has come back as they make their way out of the S's and up towards turn number 10 as they come roaring up the hill and make their way on through. We look further back here and we can see that Harry Phillips looking to go on the offensive. The Wild Things Racing drive trying to go round the outside, and Nembrini here at turn 10. He's got the grip to do it. He's on there, but we can see Nembrini defending, and that's the run down through Mineshaft as they come down from 11 into 12. Mineshaft corner at 12, and as they make their way on through, it's the case all the momentum as we see in the rearview picture Leo Boulet going on the inside here of what is Tinko van der Velde, and he's still on the outside as they make their way into 13. And as they come through the corner, you can see that Boulay just simply not able to force his way on through the ITR drive, having to wait for an opportunity as they now come down towards turn number 15. They all come clambering through here, balancing the throttle. We've got a car running wide as we see the SPQR driver, Matteo Morano, getting it a bit wrong and bunching up Tinko van der Velde. As we see further back, we've got Konstantin Soldatov into the pits. And after one lap then, ladies and gentlemen, it's Daniel Sherapin leading right now by 6/10 of a second ahead of Luke Whitehead in P2. We've got Vedsfield in P3, followed by Zavolov in P4. Then Ivan Shematinsky in P5, followed by Dennis DeMarco in P6. Following them is Chris Zoiga in P7. Oh, it's not Zoiga. It is Chris Zoiga, my apologies, but he has got Harry Phillips going around the outside to inside here. And Phillips getting the move done as they make their way up through turn 3 and into 4. And Phillips doing it very comfortably indeed there. And Zoiga not battling that one too hard as they make their way now up towards turn number 5. And as they come into the right hander here, it's Harry Phillips now up into P7 as they continue on through. Meanwhile, behind, we've got Matteo Morano just behind Christian Nembrini in P10. Then Morano, then we've got Tinko van der Velde bring out the rest of the field in P11 as they come charging up into turn number 6. Fast and frantic so far as we see Louis Boulay go a little bit deep there, and it looks as though Tan's going to come on through as Boulay has to return, and there's contact between the two drivers as they make their way back onto the circuit here, and Boulay goes around the outside to inside through the S's, and as they make their way back up towards turn number 10 right now, Boulay definitely getting his elbows out nice and early as behind we see Kevin Gelling really at the head of the next pack, as behind them it's Krivek just ahead of Fornes there as they make their way into the braking zone. The Dragons eSport driver here got quite the traffic jam of cars behind, all trying to get their way on through. As we ride on board here with the Dragons eSport machine, they make their way down through Mineshaft right now, and you can see Fornes, Haritojo, Felipe, Fox, it's Servalone as well, all of them clustering up behind, and Servalone has gained the position on Fox in the rear of your picture coming out to 10. And as they make their way through the right hander here of what is turn number 13 and make their way through into 14, he goes a bit wide there, does Krivik, but it's the case he keeps it together as they go through 15, but feeling a lot of pressure right now as they come down into turn number 16 here, heavy on the brakes, and you can see everybody looking for that opportunity as they know go charging it down towards turn number 2 once again. And as they make their way across that timeline, we can see towards the back of this pack, we've got Servalone here just waiting for that opportunity to get into this fight as we ride on board with the Italian here as he makes his way on down. We see Marcus Fox ahead, looking for that potential move on Felipe, but he's nowhere near close enough. In fact, by coming off of that racing line, he's tying the apex and really hurt his run as they now make their way through the corners here. Once again, they come roaring up into turn number 3 and 4, and as he makes his way into the left hand here, you can see that Servalone just waiting as we've got a car going a little bit wide further up the road, and in fact just getting back onto the racing line. I believe that was Ivan Fornes there getting it a bit wrong, and in fact he's lost a bit of momentum off of Krivik as they make their way on through the right into left combination as they come up towards turn number 6, and we've got the Bentley of what is leaking McGee. Well, he's gained 3 places, well, he's gained more than 3 places, my apologies, he's gained 13 places at the start from P34. He's had a fantastic start, McGee, but now he's got it all to do as the Briton makes his way through the AKM Racing UK driver here through the S as he goes, and he's right on the back of this pack, and everybody scrambling for position here as they make their way into turn number 10, and nobody going for the move this time, but everybody continuing together. Once again, you can see Pavel Pushkarev just behind right now trying to get in close here, but that Bentley very strong, accelerating out the corners. Its top end is where it loses out, and the Ferrari will gain gradually over distance, but it's not enough of a run in order to be able to go for the move here as they come through 13, if come through 12 and up into 13 as we see McGee looking for the move there on what is Servalone, but he can't quite find it. He's trying to intimidate him, but he's not going to be perturbed. It's Servalone as they make their way now through turn number 15, and they come down. We've got a car going wide there in the run down the hill, and I think we've got somebody peeling off into the pits as well, and that is Servalone into the pits. Servalone taking an early pit stop here, and I believe that might be to shrug off the pit stop nice and early and get himself out of this battling as they make their way down onto lap number 4 here. They come charging on down the hill, and meanwhile a bit further up front I can tell you that Dennis DeMarco right now, oh goodness me, and that was Chris Zoiga. They're getting it very wrong on the exit of turn number 2 as they make their way, and he's held the position versus Leo Boulay there as we can see Tan as well, and this is the battle by looks of things for P11 as Van der Velde is ahead right now as they make their way up towards turn number 5, and as they come charging into the right hander here, Zoiga on the inside, it's a case of Boulay on the outside, and as they make their way on through they settle down into an order here, and as they come through the right hander and now up into the left hander, it looks like Zoiga here really struggling in terms of the drivers behind in overall pace as they make their way through the left hander at turn 6 and now head down towards the S's at 7 and 8. And now will we see the CHF Motorsport driver here have to go defensive in the run up to 10, where it looks like he's not got the momentum he needs for 8 right now, you can see. And in fact, look at Boulet trying to go around the outside to inside here. Zoiga really struggling for speed as they make the way into 10, and Boulet goes up the inside. It's going to be a classic move at 10, and he makes his way through here, and Boulet is now going to try and make the breakaway as the Frenchman as he comes down the hill from 11 and in towards 12, and it's a good pass as he carries on. But meanwhile, looking a little bit further back, we can see one ITR driver making gains, and now we ride on board with another one as he chases after Tan, and he looks for a very late move. He's not able to find it in the end, with Tan getting bunched up behind Zoiga, and you can see they all want to clear the Porsche driver as much as possible here, because that Porsche is just struggling to make its way around this circuit right now as we continue to ride with Gelin for the time being. And as they make their way through the left-hander, a 16 for Ingrid corner once again. 7 minutes this race complete, still plenty more time to go. It is the case that right now Gelin really wanting to get a move on as we hear Pushkarev into the pits as well, so a lot of drivers taking early pit stops to clear it out as they make their way on through. As they come charging down towards turn number 2 once again, and into the left hand they go, and you can see Tan on the inside, and Zoiga, there's contact between the two of them, and Tan has to back out there, but Chris Zoiga must know that right now he has to defend for his life this early, because he just does not have the pace. As Boulet goes to move on the inside here, he looks through it, and he's almost got it, but Tan just about holds on there on the outside. Brilliant racing, but now Krivek's into the battle here as they make their way up into turn 5, and Krivek's going to go around the outside. Can he do it, or will he have to back off? The Aston Martin's going to try, but in the end he has to back off. There's not enough corner to take the move, and as they make their way up into 6th, he continues to try and force the door open, but there's no way. And Gelin, we know one thing about Kevin Gelin: he will not give up when you're trying to make a move on him. He will shut that door, firmly shut, and throw the key away. And as they make their way through the S's now, you can see already how he's making the break once again here, but the frustration must be building for the 2 Ferrari drivers as they're trying to find a way past the Porsche. But meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that it's the case that Cherepin's still leading and currently 2.1 seconds clear. Last time it was updated versus Whitehead, and it does look as though the Russian right now really flying compared to his peers in the top 10 as he makes his way through on the circuit as he comes down towards what is turn number 16 once again. And behind Whitehead, really the best of the rest right now with Vez Field. Well, we told you Field was going to try and get his way up the field, and it is the case. He's up into P3. He's gained 1 place versus Zabolov, and Shermatinsky as well is also with these guys, but you can see the delta. Now, is it the case that Cherepin's running a lighter car compared to the guys behind? Because we saw Whitehead very strong at the start off the launch, but he's fallen back right now, and that's the big question as all of our drivers make their way around onto lap number 6. But as we look from the battle here to a little bit further back, you can see Dennis DeMarco right now forming our next pack here in P6, and he has got behind him Harry Phillips, and Phillips, to be fair, has really come on strong since Suzuka. He's up in P7 right now and doing everything he can to close up to DeMarco as the Team Borders eSport driver here tries to hold and goes a little bit wide out 4. They go roaring into 5, and now as they make their way through the right hand, you can see Phillips all over the back of him as they make their way through the corner, and it really does look as though Harry Phillips is enjoying this revived form as they come through turn number 6 now, and it's DeMarco. Well, to be fair to the Borders eSport driver here, he's not doing bad himself, but it just looks as though Phillips, particularly in the first half of the lap, is so much more comfortable with the car compared to the Ferrari driver ahead of him. Now, is that just the Bentley? Of course, that is a question, or is it the case that it is the drivers in terms of the differences in their approaches? But it looks like DeMarco right now is unsettled as he goes a little bit deep there through 10. The car just drifting wide of apex, and you can see the difference in line. DeMarco really just trying to force the car through these corners, and Phillips has got so much rotation in that front end of that car, and as they make their way down into turn number 13 here, you'd have to imagine that Phillips is going to be looking to sneak the move in soon as they come on through the right-hander and then go into the left of 14 before coming on through into 15, the next right-hander, as they make their way on through. But behind these guys, we see it's Nembrini in P8 right now, and Christian Nembrini, the Cortec Racing driver, doing well here as he makes his way on down into the final corner, into Ingwe corners again, and as the Cortec Racing machine makes its way on through right now, our top 10 quite spaced out in their own little battles and packs. But then the big question really is, outside of the top 10, when's it all going to kick off? And you see in the rear of your pitch there, Leo Boulet closing up to the battle for P8 very gradually, and that is something which we are starting to see. He's building momentum as we see them make their way through the corner, and it looks though Phillips has gone around the outside here of what is DeMarco as they make their way through 2 and up into 4, and as they come on through, Harry Phillips gaining a position versus DeMarco. We didn't quite see it on camera, we saw the end of it going round the outside at the turn 2 hairpin. Harry Phillips up into P6 and carrying that momentum onwards as he now goes hunting after P5, but he's got a 3.6 second gap to close up to Shermatinsky ahead of him. Will he be able to close up? At what rate or not is the question. But further back, meanwhile, looking outside of our top 20, it's the case our P21 driver right now hunting down a P20, 20. It is Andreas Sorensen here, the Dane, who is chasing after Lucas Seedorf as they make their way through the right-hander here, and as they come through the right. Well, in fact, that's not Lucas Seedorf there, because that is an Aston Martin that's out of position and making its way on through very rapidly indeed. And as he comes on through the Aston Martin, we'll wait to see who that is, but they are a lap down right now. And then it's Lucas Seedorf in the Porsche ahead, where it's the case they've just traded places, but I believe that is an Aston Martin much further down the order effectively that is trying to essentially make its way through back markers. We see Sorensen here in the defend versus Ryan Mina, who's going to go on the inside here, and Ryan Mina goes to the move and gets it done, and Ryan Mina up in position. It looks as though Pantera's also going to come through here as they make their way down for 11 into mineshaft corner at 12, and just by one move being made, it's now a double pass as they come through, and Sorensen backs out of here. I think the 587 driver's thinking himself right now, there's only 12 minutes down, we've still got another 78 minutes, I don't need to do anything hairy or silly at this point as they come through turn and number 13 and into 14, 15 they roll, and as they make their way through, we look a little bit further back and we can see meanwhile Raymond Mooney, after what was a horrific start for a number of drivers including Mooney, now down in P29, and he's trying to find a way back into the top 20. His next target is Rainer Effenstedt, who's 2.2 seconds up the road. And behind him, he's got Cervellone, who's 8 tenths back, and you see the Ferrari driving the rear of his picture as he makes his way in towards turn at number 15 here. But right now for Mooney, you have to imagine he's got to dig deep and find a way to get back into this one. And speaking of digging deep, another driver who has to right now, it's a disastrous start for the Spaniard, Andres Mesa, who has got 2 pit stops still to do. He hasn't taken a pit stop yet, but after that contact on the opening lap between multiple drivers, including himself, you can imagine the distinct GG driver, he's going to be looking now to try and make a recovery out of this. Can he do it? Well, if anybody can, we know Andres is the one driver who will literally dig a result out of nowhere. He's a long way off the back. His next target is Izo, who is the best part of a good 5-6 seconds up the road from him as we now look back towards our leader. And we can see Sherapinin here on lap number 8 already making his way towards the end of the lap, and the S&P Racing eSport driver is just running away with this at this current point in time. Although to be fair, I say he's running away. Whitehead is keeping him honest. That last lap between Cherepinin and Whitehead, a 41.335 for Cherepinin. Meanwhile, Whitehead, who we switch to now, a 41.387. So the two drivers are exchanging lap times as if it's going out of style. And I do think that the Britain in P2 right now may have a card up his sleeve. He may have an ace that he's getting ready to deploy. Now, whether it is that he's running more fuel or he's trying to go longer on one of his stints compared to the race leader, we will have to wait and see as they all come across the timing line. And Ivan Shematinsky now takes the fastest lap of the race on that lap with 41.277. The Bentley driver is now starting to build a little bit of momentum. Will he be able to get into the hunt? We'll have to wait and find out as they all make their way around through 3 and up into 4. And it's the case the SMP Racing eSport driver right now just keeping his head down as we clear the first 14 minutes of this race. And we check into the chat right now, and it is the case as we look back to P6. We see Harry Phillips as he makes his way on through, and in the YouTube chat there, MJK8, as we say hello to MJK8 in YouTube, wanting us to give an update on Phillips, and Phillips doing everything right now as he makes his way through 5 and up into 6. But it looks as though DeMarco not able to stay with the Bentley driver here, and instead DeMarco gradually starting to fall a little bit backwards to Nimbrini. We are seeing Nimbrini close up. He closed up by 2 tenths on the previous lap right now, and it means that DeMarco could be vulnerable within the next 3 laps to a potential Aston Martin nipping at his heels. As you see a little bit further back there, Tinko van der Velde also getting in, but further back Morano and Leo Boulay here in the battle for P10 as we see the Italian leading the Frenchman right now as they come through the left hand and start to go downhill. It's the case the SPQR Racing driver just trying to do everything he can to chase after the guys up front. I think for him, the problem is right now, the more he's pushing, the more he's causing Boulay to close up to him. He's making these little moments, and Boulay is flying behind him. Although on that last lap, to be fair, Morano was a tenth of a second faster, but as he goes deep there through 13 and into 14, you can see Boulay really doing everything in his power to close up as they come through 15 and into 16 right now. And we ride on board with the McLaren driver as he makes his way through turn 16, and you can see how much he is pursuing as they make their way out of the final corner and onto lap number 10. Now, what can Boulay do at this point, of course, is the big question. He's only 3 tenths off here. He is close. Can he go for a potential move as they look down into 2? He's going to come from very far back if he's going for this, but he will have to go very late on the brakes to get it done. No, he waits, but you can see the difference in the two drivers' approaches, with the Ferrari driver ahead able to take more speed off the apex, compared to the McLaren, but the McLaren much faster in the ascent as they come through turn number 3 and 4, and now up towards 5 they go. And will Boulay be able to find his way in as they look towards 5? I don't think so. He'll be setting up a move into 6 if he's going to go for one as they come on through the right-hander, and you can see just having to balance that throttle, and in the dirty air of the Ferrari in front as well, feeling that nose, not want to bite into the corner as much as it would normally in clear air, but he's right there, the Intruder Racing team driver, comfortable behind his opponent and waiting for that opportunity to attack as we just follow him up through the S's right now. And you can see the Ferrari in front sliding there into turn 7. This is the moment he was looking for. It looks like that Ferrari is just a bit unstable in the rear end, but can Boulay get it done under braking into 10? He's going to have to come from quite far back. He looks it, but he's not close enough as Morano closes the door and waits to hold on it once again as they come for 11. And Boulay just getting a little bit of oversteer on the exit at 10. Pushing so hard is the Frenchman as they make their way down the hill once again. And behind them, Chris Zoiga has been dropped and is the best part of what is about 2 to 3 seconds back as they make their way in towards turn number 13, and we can see Morano going deep again, but that deep line seems to benefit him just about, and Boulay close but not able to find a way through. But again, he's right there every corner, and he's right in the slipstream. You can see even a little flash of lights as they make their way through the left-hander of 16 for Ingrid corner to go on to another lap here, and he is a bit closer this time as we see ahead Tinker van der Velde closing up to the back, and then Brini here, and it does look as though the Dutchman has been building pace as we see a drive-through penalty for DeMarco, and meanwhile Morano not close enough to be assaulted by Boulay this time. As meanwhile outside of our top 10 battles we can see it's Kevin Gellin still in P13 as the Intruder Racing team driver makes his way through, and Fornas here in P14 doing everything he can to hold on for the time being. And in terms of holding on, chasing after the top 13, you can see behind there Krivet and Haratojo, they're starting to get closer and closer together as Marcus Fox as well. We started to build up a bit of momentum, has Fox down in P17, but he is coming back into this race as they make their way through the corners right now. But as we can see there in the Twitch chat, we say hello to Sweelove and Jerry R Driver. We hope you guys are doing well, and this is Kyalami, and our race winner for you love in the Twitch chat, or George Boothby in round number 1, is not participating tonight because he is expecting the arrival of his firstborn child, so we congratulate him of course, but that means it's an opportunity for a brand new winner tonight. And Boulay was one of the drivers who was right up there in contention for the podium, but a number of instances saw him drop out of the battle for the podium and into battles for the top 5 at Suzuka, just to clarify your question. But we have got some penalties coming in, and we are just trying to find out what those penalties are for. And the question is, where is Izo? Well, we will find Izo for you, good sir, and that is of course Luigi Capuano in the chat. And Izo, when we find him very shortly, Giovanni Izo is currently P32. He did have a very difficult start to his race, however there was some contact with drivers. He took a pit stop early on, and I think that was to get rid of the damage and also clear one of his mandatory stops, as we see a stop and go 30-second penalty for Nestor Magia. We see a 5-second penalty for Vaca, and also a drive-through for our P7 driver of Dennis DeMarco. But here is Izo, and right now just trying to get himself back into the race as they make their way through. And here is Sanjin Blecic, meanwhile, all the way down in P23. The Yellow Esports Racing Zone Bentley here in a bit of a no man's land right now. He's not being closed up by Rattel behind, and he's not really closing up to Sorensen ahead of him as he makes his way through 15. As he makes his way on through, we look a bit further back up the order, and we see Haratojo here, the Cosmos Racing team driver in the Ferrari course from France, the number 404 car. And we can see now these battles here for what is a roughly P14 through to P20 starting to space out a little bit as all of our drivers make their way through, and Haratojo really just not building up enough momentum as we see behind there Lucas Filippi, the German driver here, the Wallow Racing driver in P18. Well, he's got over the back of him Ryan Mean, and it's two Ferraris going toe-to-toe very shortly. And Ryan Mean, and well, to be fair to Ryan Mean, he started quite far back and he's finding his way back into this race very rapidly indeed as they make their way up. And as they come into the braking zone here, Mina's looking to the inside, and as they come through the corner there, that was very tight under braking, but Meenan's found the space, and as they come into the S's here, he has to back out briefly, but Meenan is definitely not holding anything behind right now, and I think for Meenan, he's doing everything he can in order to get himself a strong result as they come roaring up the hill in towards 10 now. And we're looking back here from the battle for P18, and as they come through, you can see Lucas Seedorf behind as well, and just a little bit further back, Pantera, they're all closing up as they make their way down the hill, and as they roll down towards turn number 12 once again into Mineshaft corner here, it's a situation where Meenan definitely looking very fierce, very mean in that Ferrari as they come down to turn 13, and under braking they go here. Filippi doesn't go fully defensive, but he does put the car in the middle of the road. That will cost him some time on the exit, and you can see Meenan capitalising already. He knows there's an opportunity. It's not going to be into 15, it'll be in the run to 2 where he goes for it. as they come down to Ingwe corner here, down into turn number 16 once again, and as they make their way into a left-hander, he goes a bit deep, does Felipe, and this is the opportunity that Meenan wants, but Meenan as well gets a little bit of oversteer on the exit there. Both drivers pushing to the absolute limit of the DHE compound tyre as they make their way down towards turn number 2 once again here, and as they go charging on down, it's the case that under braking, no way through for Meenan this time, but he's looking as though he's sizing out the move, as we see Felipe go very deep there, and he just catches the car, and Meenan now looking to cut back in for turn 4 as they make the way in, and Meenan looks to the inside once again. He puts the car right up there, he sends it, and the FFS driver makes his way on, but now it's side by side in the run down towards turn 5. We see Lucas Seedor trying to get in as well. They're going to make it 3 wide into 5, a corner where you don't overtake, and we see Seedor backs out, Meenan on the outside, still Felipe on the inside, and as they come on through, all 3 drivers compromised on their lines. Meenan holds that inside, and as they come through here, it's Meenan who takes the position. He moves up into P18, and now Lucas Seedor behind will try to get into this battle as soon as humanly possible, as they're fighting for P18 as if it's for the win, and who can blame them right now, because every position's worth points as they make the way up towards turn number 10, and Felipe now has to worry about Lucas Seedor getting close as they make the way to the second half of the lap. But meanwhile, looking further back from these guys as they come roaring down the hill, I can tell you that Walter Lux is right now down P32, and he's got the race leaders coming on through here. He is a lap down, and so he's having to let, I believe that is Nembrini coming through, and behind him that is the Aston Martin Andre Jacqueline, the Food Point Racing driver, who's battling with him for position for P32. So Lux in a world of hurt right now as he makes his way around on the circuit, and as they come on through, it's a case that as we look around the circuit right now with regards to some of these drive-through penalties that we are hearing about. So Luca Filippi had a drive-through penalty at the start of the race for no reason whatsoever. I believe that has been cleared, and we are hearing that there's also some other penalties which are not explained at the moment, but we are trying to get explanations for you as we go, ladies and gentlemen, so apologies about that. It does seem as though some of those technical gremlins have said hello tonight, but as our drivers continue to make their way around right now, one thing that's for sure, the technical gremlins aren't depriving us of good old-fashioned racing at Kyalami, as meanwhile we look a bit further up to Vaca in P24 as he looks here to get the move on Blecic into turn number 2, and he goes on the inside there. Blecic not fighting that one too hard, and Vaca up into P23 as they now make the way up into turn 4, and I think at this point now both drivers simply setting down into a rhythm as we see behind there Raymond Mooney, who will now try to get into this fight, of course, as we ride on board with the Porsche driver, the Scotsman in P25 right now. He'd like that P24, but of course the Porsche versus the Bentley, a very different dynamic compared to two Bentleys fighting one another, but Blecic gets it very wrong there on the run through 5, and as they come up into 6, well, Mooney's not close enough to go for it this time, but Blecic really struggling for grip as he comes out the sweepers, and as they make the way into the S's here, will we see the Bentley struggle once again? Well, he goes through the corner absolutely fine this time, but he rolls a little bit wide off of the second apex, and as they make the way out towards turn 10 right now, Mooney not close enough, but definitely thinking about it. He's not going to be able to do it this time, but he comes in quite hot on the brakes, and Mooney in the end having to get ready to throw the car to the right. I think he was thinking at one point, oh goodness, I've broken too late, but in the end the Porsche's brakes standing true, and as they make their way down the hill now, Mooney getting as close as he possibly can as he comes roaring on down through turn number 12 and up into 13 here. He won't be looking for the move into 13, or will he? He looks to it, and we can see Blecic goes very defensive, and it causes him to go deep as they make their way out the corner now and head through 14 and up into 15 here, and Mooney constantly like a little fly, he's all over the back of the beast that is the Bentley as they make their way down to corner, and he goes for the move on the inside, very late on the brakes, and as he comes through the corner, Mooney makes the position, but now it's the long run down towards turn 2, and if any car's going to be able to accelerate with that Porsche, it will be the Bentley as they make their way down, but I think Mooney's got it done here. He's quite a way ahead, he's got a couple of attempts of breathing room, and as they come into the braking zone, we know he's strong on the brakes, and we see Blecic braking much earlier by comparison there, and I think Blecic having a bit of braking difficulty and having to go on the brakes much sooner to try and protect the car, as it's Mooney now up into P24, but meanwhile we look from our battle for P24 back towards our leaders, and we see Cherepinin here still holding on to that lead, and as he makes his way on through right now, I can tell you that Vedsfield has actually dropped 2 places whilst we've been looking away from all this. Vedsfield has dropped down to P5, and it's Whitehead, Shematinsky, Zavolov who are between our leader and field as they make their way on through. And as they do come through the corners here, we do continue to see that it's a case that our drivers are making the way on through, and we are now starting to get some clarity with regards to those penalties, ladies and gentlemen. So we will be able to bring you updates regarding them very shortly. But as we can see here, Vesfield making his way down towards turn number 2. Once again here on lap number 16, the Swiss, we had a strong start. I think there's been a bit of a moment which has cost him a couple of places, but he's still there in contention for the battle for the podium. He's not out of this yet. Do not count Vesfield out. If anybody is going to be able to come back later in the race, it is Vesfield, as we see Harry Phillips a bit further back. Meanwhile, down in P6, we've just got himself past Tillum Dan as they make their way around the circuit here, and we can see that it's Harry Phillips who's just found his way around past the back marker as they make their way up towards turn number 5. And as they do so, here we are starting to get that clarity with regard to those penalties, as we see that is the case for that 5-second penalty in particular. 5-second penalty for car number 16, stats for Vaca. So that is our P23 driver here. As we just bring up on the screen right now, the Ballas Esport drivers received a 5-second penalty for what was avoidable contact. Bump in the rear of car 9 caused them to lose speed and a position earlier in the race. That was on lap number 1 at turn 16. So it was contact between them and car number 9, which was Luca Filippi. And as a result, that's what they picked up the penalty for. And we've also seen that we have had drive-through penalties for car number 1, for car number 13. And that was for, I believe, a car parking it out on the circuit. Now, car number 13, to give you an idea, that was Cormac Ryan Meenan who got that drive-through penalty for travelling excessively slow and parking the car on the apex of turn 1 at the start of the race. So that's when you saw the FFS car that seemed to be going very slowly through turn number 2. And meanwhile, the other drive-throughs we've had 2 other ones. There's been one for car number 197, and 197 being the car of, if you excuse me, Dennis DeMarco, and I believe he has cleared that drive-through penalty. So that's why DeMarco's dropped out of the hunt for the top 5 for the time being. In fact, he was in P6 when he took that drive-through penalty, and the Ballas Esport driver got that drive-through for hitting a car in front of them, causing them to go off circuit. And that was car number 11 who they knocked off circuit, and that was Raymond Mooney, and that explains why Mooney dropped so far down the order. And then last but not least, in terms of drive-throughs, well, in fact, 2 more drive-throughs we've still got to go through. Car number 8, and car number 8 with regards to drive-through penalties is what is Nesta Magia, who's currently in the pits right now, I believe, having a pit stop, so they're doing work on the car, but it's the case that he picked up a penalty for bumping what was trying to go for an overtake on car 28 and causing a multi-car crash. And car number 28 was Mike Crute then, the SAS Racing driver. Well, he has been through the walls of the Britain in P31 right now. And then we've also got a drive-through for Giovanni Izzo, who's come into the pits here. And that is, I believe, for what was in the car number 24. And that was for spin out car 12 on the apex of turn 4. And car number 12 was Rainer Effenstedt. And that's why Effenstedt's so far down, as we've got even more penalties coming on in. But we will talk about those in a short while right now, because it's not just about penalties, it's about the racing, as I'm sure you all appreciate. And to give you an update on our leaders right now, as we come towards the end of the opening third of the race here, it does look as though Cherepinin is still holding on to that lead. He is matching the guys behind him in terms of pace. His last lap of 41.6, this lap meanwhile, as he crosses that timeline of 41.495. Cherepinin right now is breaking away from Whitehead behind. That gap has opened up to just shy of 4 seconds, as we see Whitehead here just making his way down to turn 2 as well. But it's Sherman Tinsky in particular down in P3 that we're keeping our eyes on. He is the fastest man out on circuit at the moment. He has the fastest lap, which is a 41.277, and he is matching the leader's pace as well. So the Bentley driver right now doing a very good job of just keeping his head down, and I think it's a case that we are seeing 3 different strategies from our top 3, and that's why we're seeing this evolution in terms of the racing right now, because I do wonder whether Cherepinin is running a lighter car compared to his peers behind him, because he seems to have made a break and is managing that break, and he's not being caught up at any point right now. But we will wait and see, because it could be that Cherepinin just simply has the pace in the car as we complete the first half for now. And behind, well, we've got Nembrini still in P8. He's behind Tinker van der Velde right now, and you can imagine the Cortec Racing driver here will be feeling very happy with his current position. And Boulay behind is trying to close up to him rather rapidly, but we will see if Boulay is able to do that, of course, a bit later on in this race, as our drivers make their way on through the circuit right now. And as they do so in this time, it is one of the situations where I think that everybody's now starting to settle down into a rhythm and just keeping their head down. As meanwhile down in P17, I can tell you that Killian Ryan Meenan right now, having made his way past Felipe, and indeed Lucas Seedor's also found his way on through. And you see Seedor there in the bottom of your picture as they make their way through turn number 4 and up 5 and 6, and now they come up towards the S's at 7 and 8. It's one of the situations where Meenan will be chasing down Fox, and he'll be doing so as rapidly as possible, and Meenan is matching Fox on pace right now, it's the case, but we'll wait and see how Meenan goes over the next couple of laps. As meanwhile, one driver who we haven't really talked about for a while, Chris Zoiga here down in P11. Well, it was the case that after really struggling, Zoiga, I think, has found a bit more pace on the circuit now in the high 42s as he almost goes a little bit wide there out of turn 13. The driver behind him, Kevin Gellin, last lap of 42.4, so I do think the ITR driver will be closing up for a move soon, but I also wonder whether Zoiga is running a lot of fuel in the back of that Porsche right now, because we do know that the CHF Motorsport guys have quite a knack for some rather interesting strategies, and Zoiga nonetheless will be one of those drivers who's trying to do something a bit different, I think, to outfox the drivers around him as they go onto lap number 19 and head on down. But right now it's the case the Swiss just carrying the momentum around on circuit, but he is in the high 42s to low 43s, whereas the guys around him are in the low to mid 42s, and he is definitely being reeled in by this man behind him as the camera pans around. Kevin Gellin just trying to push on, and we see Krivek in the background as well as we check in with you guys and girls in the chat once again. And we can see So What there in the YouTube chat saying, oh, he's in P4, okay, and I believe that is Zavolov there, and yep, indeed, Oleg Zavolov keeping his head down and keeping it nice and firm as he makes his way around on the circuit there, coming down through turn number 11 right now. Good start from Zavolov, and I think it's the case that right now he's settled down into his rhythm as he's making his way on through. He's got Vesfield behind him, he's got Sheventinsky ahead of him, both drivers roughly 1.5 seconds either side of him, well, in fact 2 seconds between Zavolov and Sheventinsky, and right now it's the case that Zavolov just doing everything he can to try and bring home a good result. Looking at our weather radar, ladies and gentlemen, we're still looking at cloud right now. No rain on its way within the next half an hour. I'm afraid to say we are going to have consistent conditions, which of course some drivers will be very pleased about. Others will be saying, why can't it rain right now? Why can't I have some dice thrown into the mix? That's always the case. Of course, some drivers will benefit, some will not. We will wait and see what happens, as meanwhile we do look a bit further down the order once again towards Kevin Gellin here in P11. In fact, he's found his way past Chris Zoiga. He's done that up into turn number 10, I'm hearing in my ear. And now we can see behind Christian Krivik here also looking to go on the offensive as we ride on board with the Aston Martin driver as he tries to close up to the back of the Porsche. Now, in terms of the Aston Martin versus the Porsche, we know the Aston Martin machinery very fast at a straight line, strong on the acceleration, but in terms of the cornering, not strong in the corners typically compared to the Porsche. But again, Chris Zoiga, we believe, is on a very different strategy from the guys around him as he locks up the brakes there, and as a result we're going to see now as they make their way up into turn number 4, it's the case that Krivik could not find his way on through, but Zoiga, I think, looking, he was in two minds whether to defend or go for the move versus Gellin, and in the end Gellin just keeping the car where it was, which he's allowed to do of course because Zoiga was not fully alongside. And as they made their way up towards turn 5, Krivik now just trying to build that momentum here, but you can see fighting the steering wheel to turn it in, and Zoiga goes very deep there through the corner, but the momentum that Zoiga's holding through the corners is something in of itself as they make their way through turn number 6 and up into the S's right now. And the Porsche driver, give him his credit where he's due, is really making that Porsche go through the corners very, very firmly as they make their way through the S's, but Krivik is staying right with him here, even with the dirty air, taking away some of that front end downforce as they now make their way up into the left-hander at turn number 10 now as they come to the end of the first half of the circuit. You see Krivik going deep here, and what he's trying to do is get a cutback line, but Zoiga able to rotate the car much more rapidly through the corner, and as they now roll their way down towards mineshaft here and head in towards turn number 13, you'd have to imagine at this point Krivik's got it all to do again, as we do see Gellin now starting to make the breakaway as they come into the right-hander, and Zoiga gets it a little bit deep under braking, and I think he's locking up quite considerably in these heavy braking zones, and that is where he's losing the time and why the car looks as though it's trying to spear the corner. It's the front brakes just aren't delivering the braking potential that he needs, and as they come into 16 you can see that Krivik looking for the move and then moves back onto the racing line. Zoiga reacted to it. He's definitely wary of the fact the Aston Martin driver's closer than he's been, and as they make their way across that timeline down to lap 21 now, it's a long run to 2. They head down towards the braking zone. Zoiga goes defensive on the inside. Krivik looks to the outside here, and under braking they go, and you can see Zoiga going very defensive, and as they emerge from the corner he goes deep but holds the line now as he holds that inside, going up through the right-hander of 3 into 4 they come, but Krivik looking for every which way to go on through here, trying to force a move on, and he's all over the back of the Porsche. They're having to lift out slightly on the exit of turn number 4, and up into 5 they come, and Gellin's not breaking away enough here, so this is actually helping Zoiga out to an extent on the straight, giving him a bit of a slipstream in the run down towards corners as they make their way through 5 and up into 6 here. And I think now Kurik's got to wait once again. He's come a bit too close, and as a result, he's got to back it off as they make their way through 6 and up into the S's once again. Behind them, you can see DeMarco, after that drive-through penalty, is now building some momentum as well. Dennis DeMarco, as he comes through the left into right sequence here, and the Ballers Esport driver will be salivating at the prospect of being able to battle with 3 drivers so early on and get himself back into the top 10 as he makes his way through. Now, as they continue through the corners here, as well as situations where, again, we look to Kurik versus what is Zoiga there, but no change between these guys. And further up, I can tell you that Harry Phillips has been passed by Tinko van der Velde. Now, in terms of lap time, Tinko van der Velde has been driving very, very fast and consistently recently. His laps all been in the low 42s. Phillips, the last couple of laps, have been low 43. So Tinko van der Velde has been given the hurry up by his race engineer, most likely, that he needs to get a move on, or just the driver himself has said, I want to get a move on with this right now. But Van der Velde has got ahead of Harry Phillips here. But again, we still do have a lot of time remaining. Could we see strategies invert these positions? That will be the question that we're waiting for clarification on, but we'll only find out when those pit stops start to occur. And in terms of waiting for those pit stops, the highest placed driver who's taken their first stop is the P21 driver of Mattia Vaca here. As we can see, the Team Ballers Esport driver with a 5-second penalty for an incident earlier on in the race. And you see all over the back of him right now is Mooney. Mooney's literally sellotaped himself to the back of that Bentley, and Vaca goes defensive in the long run down towards 2, and you can see that Mooney will not want to pull out until it's absolutely critical. He hasn't got the straight line speed to get the overrun, and as they come down to the braking zone, Mooney's going to try and go all the way around the outside. There's contact between the two of them, and you can see that Mooney goes as wide as, oh goodness me, and Mooney being clipped there by Vaca. I think it's going to be one for the stewards to take a look at there. Both drivers in that instant, and Vaca with some damage to the front suspension, I think, and Mooney, well, he's going to be absolutely furious. I can imagine from his perspective, he'll be thinking that he should have been given the right to race, but that's the one for the stewards to figure out as we wait now for the outcome of that. And meanwhile, it's Sorensen who gains the place out of all of it, and the Nordic Racing Team driver here just carries on his way. And to be fair, this is sometimes what you've got to do, just stay out of trouble and not fight too hard. And indeed, his teammate Emil Blaine will probably be on the radio to him right now saying, you've got a fast driver coming through behind, he'll want that position like his life depends on it. Don't fight it too hard, it's not worth your while. Just wait for them to take one another out again when they get close. And I think Sorensen's going to move out the way shortly. As you can see, Mooney looking to the inside and Sorensen moving off that racing line early, and indeed the Nordic Racing Team driver here just simply keeping his head down and staying out of trouble as they make their way through turn number 10, and Mooney goes charging after P22, and that's Soldatov up the road from them as they make their way, and that's Konstantin Soldatov, I should say in full, as the Russian driver from M2 competition here in P22. And we talked about too much, and Soldatov having a very quiet race as we're now starting to see our top 20 drivers pit, and we're seeing Haritojo being our first to pit. The Cosmos Racing Team driver is in as he will just gradually drop down the order they do the work on the car. And our race leader staying out there, Cherepinin, to be fair, continuing to open the gap up. That last lap from Cherepinin of 41.7. The only other drivers right now doing 41s are our P4 driver Oleg Zolobolov and also our driver in P6, that's Tinko van der Velde. Everybody else is in the 42s or higher. I think Cherepinin has just simply got this one on an outright pace right now. I've been trying to figure out where the difference is between himself and Whitehead, but I just think that it's the case that the S&P Racing Esport driver got it done in qualifying, and now he's trying to run away with this one as much as he can. But meanwhile, look at this, Shermatinsky here has been closing up to the back of Whitehead over the course of the last couple of laps, and Whitehead, to be fair, has been putting in solid laps. They've been low 42s, the pair of them, but Shermatinsky has been flying as they make their way down onto the start finish line. And they go down to lap number 24, and Shermatinsky at 41.5, Whitehead at 41.8, and it's definitely the case the Porsche driver is being reeled in and then some, as Shermatinsky in that boat is going fishing as they make their way through 2 and up into 3. And as they come through the right hand here, I think it's going to be the case that Whitehead will be the stronger of the two of them through the opening half of the lap, simply because he's got the flow in that Porsche. He's also got the natural weight transfer on the rear axis, the rear axle I should say, compared to the Bentley with its engine in the front, as they make their way through the right hander. of turn number 5. We'll start to see the tail, and they've got traffic ahead of them as well, and this is not ideal for Whitehead. He's caught the traffic at one of the worst possible times, come up to the corners where he needs a best possible run, and that is 6 through to the S's here, as he's got the Food Point Racing Machine of what is Andre Jacqueline, and ahead of him as well, I believe that's the AKM Racing Machine. They're both a lap down. Of course, they will be blue flagged, but when they move out the way, of course, is at the moment where it's safe to do so, and you can see Andre Jacqueline moving here, but he's on the inside, and as they come up into the braking zone, he moves clearly. Oh, goodness me, it's Shematinsky locking up the brakes. They're carrying way too much momentum into the corner, and I think at that point, it was Casey was trying to clear Jacqueline, but at the same time stay with Whitehead there. Oh, he's recovered the car quite well, but he has lost a bit of time. He's lost 3 attempts by simply running deep, and I think he's put a lot of temperature into those tyres, perhaps even a flat spot on one of the fronts if he's locked up, as they make their way through 13 once again. And you can see now Whitehead relieved, I think, that he's got himself some breathing room as we head into the final 50 minutes of this race. Behind me on P9, I can tell that Leo Boulay, who we haven't been looking at for some time, he's still chasing after Nembrini. Christian Nembrini just ahead of him right now. You can see them both in the frame. This is the battle for P8 as they come through the right-hander of what is turn number 13, and you can see Boulay flashing his lights there, trying to distract the Aston Martin driver, and looking very strong as Boulay right now. One of the fastest drivers in the top 10, doing low 42s compared to Nembrini on high 42s, and as they emerge here from turn number 16, both drivers using as much width as they possibly and legally are permitted to. We look to the helicam, and it is the case as they come charging on down towards 2. You can see that Aston Martin just so strong on the straights by comparison with the McLaren, but the McLaren makes it all through the sweeping corners with its aerodynamics package, which by comparison with the Aston Martin looks like a brick by comparison with the sleek curves of the McLaren, and that is the case with the aerodynamics as they make their way up into turn number 4 here, and as they come through, you can see Boulay all over the back in the rear of your pitch. They've got Morano, well, that's not Morano, I believe that is Evan State West, one of the 2 TUG machines that's battling with Dillian Tan as they make their way through turn 4 and up into 5. But we focus right now on the battle here, and that is the battle for P30 behind. There's no change in either battle at this point, as we do see the battle for P30. That's Rainer Evenstedt at the head of this battle, the 2G Racing eSport driver, who has got Tan all over the back of him as they make their way through the S's here. And I think for the McLaren driver right now, he will be feeling the pinch in terms of having that Ferrari chasing after him as they make their way on through. But then we look back up to that battle for what is P8 here, and we can see, well, here's the case. I believe they've both gained a position with one of our drivers pitting quite recently. That's Chris Zoyer's recently pitted, but he's not the one. Well, it's the case. It's Vesfielder's pitted, ladies and gentlemen. So that's one of the game places. Vesfielder's pitted from P5 and come back out in P17. And we will briefly give you an update on where Vesfielder's come out in all of the traffic and whatnot. As you can see there, Nembrini going very deep into 14. And as they make the into 13 and going through 14 into 15 right now. Foulay's going to be close once again, but he's not close enough to look for a move here into the corner as they come on through. And further back, it is the situation as they emerge here. Well, we're going to look back at the battle for P30, but Boulay this time much closer, as close as he can possibly be in the run out of turn 16, and now in the run down towards turn 2. If he's going to go for it here, he's going to have to look to the inside and send it. He's not going to have a better chance than this, and he looks down the inside. He tries to lock it onto the brakes, and he gets it into the corner. They emerge, and he makes sure that Nembrini can't cut back there, and Boulay with a daring move moves up into P6. And of course, the strategy's yet to play out. None of these guys have made pit stops yet, but Boulay there knowing how to get it done, and now they make their way up towards turn 5 once again. As we've seen Nembrini starting to fall a little bit back here, but I think he expected it was going to come at some point, as we are seeing more pit stops coming in. Morano's into the pits right now from what was P10 at the time. Where is Vesfield, you ask? Well, he's in P17, and he's got himself clear track here with all the pit stops now starting to play out. We'll have to keep our eye on Vesfield here, because he could gain massively by simply outsmarting people on the strategy. And Shermatinsky as well has made his opening pit stop, and Shermatinsky has come back out in P11. Our man who holds the fastest lap, he pitted from P3. Excuse me, and now he's in well, in fact, it's P12 there, so we've seen Ryan Meenan come on through, and our time screen's just updated. But Shermatinsky right now has bought himself some clear space on track, and can he use this to his advantage? Well, I say that, it's the case our race leader's already reacted. Cherepinin here, already into the pits, and Whitehead as well has come in. So our leaders are all reacting to one another in the prospect of a potential undercut here. Meanwhile, Zabolov goes on to lead a lap of the race. The Russian making his way across the timeline here, and I think this will be quite a happy position for the S&P SMP Racing Esport driver here. He'll be getting a little bit of joy and camera time as he makes his way down into turn 2, and he'll be thinking to himself right now, whilst I may not be bringing home the win in this one unless there's unexpected circumstances or the strategy suddenly really plays out, he's got the track position right now, and that will bring a smile to his face. There's no doubt about that, as we're hitting that Nembrini into the pits after being passed by Leo Boulay. So as a result, a lot of our leaders now reacting, as meanwhile, where's Kevin Gelling all this? He stays out here, and we can see as he makes his way down the straight. I think Gelling going long here could have a major factor as he comes charging on down. And as he makes his way down towards turn number 2, we can see, meanwhile, further up the order, Tinko van der Velde, as he makes his way through turn 5 and up into 6, as we're halfway through the race now, 45 minutes still remaining, and as he comes through the left-hander here of what is turn 6 and into 7-8, it's the case that van der Velde right now, what can he do on the big strategic call? That is the question, because all of our drivers right now will be pushing as much as they possibly can, particularly the ones who've yet to pit, and none more so than Gelling here, who has come out and he's right behind what is Cherepinin. But to give you an idea, that is how much an advantage Cherepinin had before he came into the pits first and foremost. But I do wonder where Cherepinin's got a much longer stop ahead of him in the second round of pit stops here, because he's come out much further ahead compared to what is Whitehead and Shematinsky. Now where is Whitehead? Well, he has got Shematinsky all over the back of him again, so Shematinsky going for that one lap earlier stop, it has not worked out in terms of getting him the position, but it has worked out in getting him right behind, and this is effectively, we would assume, the battle for P2 once the strategies are said and done. But of course these two battling here could cost one another the ability to come out in P2 when it's all done. But right now you can see Shematinsky all over the back of Whitehead and flashing his lights there. Now is that a temporary alliance that he's trying to communicate through, say look, I'm not going to fight you but you've got to push, or is it the case that he's trying to distract the Briton as they make their way down through 11 and 12? Well, only the Russian knows in the cockpit of that Bentley, but I would say right now if these two squabble too much they will cost one another the prospect of being on the podium, because there are plenty of drivers. Van der Velde, Boulay into it, so you can see Shematinsky on the inside very late on the brakes, and I think Whitehead there saw it was going to come and open the steering wheel at the last moment, but Shematinsky just literally coming out of nowhere in the run down through mineshaft and getting the job done for what is P8 on circuit. But that is a critical pass, and right now you have to imagine that Shematinsky feels he can potentially win this. He is flying, is Ivan Shematinsky, as he makes his way across that timeline onto lap 28, and as he makes his way on down ahead of him right now, the only driver who's made one pit stop so far ahead of him was our race leader before the pit stop started, that's Cherepinin. But right now the gap between Shematinsky and Cherepinin is quite a sizable one, and he's got it all to do over the next 2 stints. As looking further back, we've got a stop and go penalty, a 30-second stop and go penalty for Leo Boulay, and I would reckon as we see Harry Phillips here trying to make his way past the Frenchman, and it's a case of a cutback here for the Bentley. But as they come up through turn number 3, Phillips goes around the outside to inside here, having the bravery and the audacity in the Bentley on the brakes, and as they make their way through 4 and up into 5, I think that's a stop and go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. We'll be able to tell you very shortly as they make their way up towards turn number 5 right now. Through the right-hander they go, and Boulay, well, this is going from good to bad to disastrous in a very short order of time, as we see Phillips, having made its pit stop, has gained as a result of this. But Boulay with that stop and go penalty, and it is, as far as I'm aware, it is for speed in the pit lane. We have got nothing on our steward's penalty. It's an automated penalty, and that's the typical one that our drivers would get it for as they make their way up towards what is now turn number 10. But meanwhile behind, don't count him out there, you can see that's Maher Haritojo from France here, the Cosmos Racing Team driver. He'll be looking at this thinking, is that a prospect of a top 10 I can grab? And indeed the Ferrari driver right now, who's been quite a silent driver, he started quite far down but has found his way out through the order, and Nembrini behind him as well. These guys all pushing on, and all with great opportunities here to get themselves into the top 10, depends on how things play out. As meanwhile a bit further back we can see it's the case that Christian Krivik right now all over the back of DeMarco here, and the Dragons Esport driving the number 999 machine as they make their way through turn number 10 here, battling for P17, and these guys will be building up somewhat as they come charging on down the hill. As Boulay comes into the pits, I can see out my commentary box window, he's coming into the pits to serve his penalty, and Marcus Fox in for his first pit stop as well. So Fox, who was in P8 before he pitted, will now drop down the order quite considerably, but Fox going the longest and most in at that opening stint, and we know how strong Fox's tyre management skills are, particularly with the legendary drive to P2 at Alton Park in the previous European GT3 season. That was season 2 of course. But And right now, focusing on what's on our camera, we can see Krivet really trying to find a way past what is DeMarco as they make their way out the final corner here, and just ahead of them, they do have the 2 back markers. Well, he has 1 back marker, I should say. My apologies. That's Walter Lux ahead of him, who's on the same lap in P14, and then we have got Mike Crute just ahead of them, and Crute, of course, will be expecting those blue flags to wave his way soon, no doubt. As we can see there, Lux goes a little bit deep. It's a very smooth line, and meanwhile, DeMarco really struggling to get the power down on the exit of the corner, and meanwhile, as these guys make their way on up, we can see that, oh goodness me, I believe we've got a car run off. That's Andre Jacklin having a moment. But Fox, meanwhile, finding his way on through past the traffic there in what looks to be a slightly battered Porsche on one side. But I think in the end it is all coming down for Fox as they come through. But now as we look back up to the battle for P14, we see DeMarco and Krivet have both caught up to Lux, and Lux is yet to appear. Lux going the longest of most here, and Ryan Meenan in P3 doing the same. Ryan Meenan in P3 the yet to pit, and we can see it's the case that Lux feeling that pressure behind him as he's got the fast charging Ferrari and then the Aston Martin of DeMarco and Krivet respectively, as they make their way up into turn number 10. And now as they come up into the corner here, I think DeMarco's going to look for the move. He looks the inside, and as they come on through, I think Lux in the end just does not have the grip in the tyre as he runs a bit wide and rejoins the circuit there. And indeed, Lux, I think, feeling the pain of a compound that's been pushed too far as they make their way through 12 and down into 13. And you could see Kuric goes the inside, and as they make their way on through the braking zone, the Aston Martin driver goes for the move, but he hasn't quite sealed it, or has he, as they now go into the left into right swing of 15, and he's got it done. Oh goodness me, and Lux clipping the apex curve there, hitting the sausage, and that, I think, for Lux has really hurt his race now, because he's going to lose the pace of the guys in front as Crute comes into the pits from what was P13. And my apologies, folks, I thought Crute was a lap down. Well, he's going to give me a word. I think when he watches this back later, he will have a word at me and say, no, I was up there by position. But meanwhile, we can see it's the case that further back, Fox, who's got behind him there, and that is, as I understand, that is the back marker of what is Rainer Effenstedt there. He's not in P18, Rainer Effenstedt. Soldatov's in P18, and Fox right now, well, he's just trying to catch up to Zoiga and Lux ahead of him. But ahead of these guys, meanwhile, in the battle for P3, we can see here the one driver who has yet to appear, and he's right up there. It's Ryan Meenan, but we can see Shematinsky immediately saying, you are not holding me up, good sir, and he makes the move there to Shematinsky for P3 and gets himself clear of Whitehead. But of course, Ryan Meenan may try and come back at this, or will Ryan Meenan decide, you know what, I've had my fun, I'm now going to come into the pits here and make you two fight one another again? Well, it is the case that Ryan Meenan's staying out here. He's not letting this go, and Ryan Meenan really trying to go long in this opening stint. He has been the best part of what is over 50 minutes on that compound right now, and Meenan is literally going on and on and on. When will he give in and go into the pits? Well, we can see Whitehead going for the move on the inside here, and as they make their way through turn 2, we'll see it's the case that Whitehead gets the move done, and Ryan Meenan not able to come back, but flashing his lights there, trying to distract the Porsche driver as much as he possibly can. But in the end, as they come through 4, it is the case that Meenan gives the position up in the end, I think, as we can see that Whitehead carries on. Now, as they make their way charging up towards turn number 5, I think they will gradually now start to space out, although Whitehead will try to close back up to Shematinsky. And the gap between these guys and our leader, it should be pointed out, is the best part of what is 15 seconds. And Zabolov, to be fair, something I should point out, Zabolov, where he came out in P2 after the pit stops, now he did have quite a short stop in terms of his first stop here. But again, we are seeing the SMP race, the eSport drivers here, effectively P1 through to 3, and they could be looking to steal the podium at this point. Looking very strong indeed at this point, but we will wait and see what Sherapinin and Zabolov's strategies will play out like. There is a long way still to go in this one, remember, and we'll wait and see how those strategies play as they make their way around on circuit. And as they come charging on through the corners, it's one of those situations right now where I think we are going to see it all come together in the final 20 minutes or so. Somebody's run very wide there on the exit at 15, and well, I think they've gone into the pits. I can't quite see who that is who's made their way into the pits, but meanwhile we can see Tinko van der Velde here in P17 right now, and as he soldiers his way around chasing after Vesfield here, we can imagine the McLaren driver doing everything he can to close up to the back of what is the Porsche. And as they make their way through the left-hander here, turn at number 16 through Ingwe corner, corner and up onto another lap. Van der Velde is on a charge right now, and to be fair, he is our fastest man on circuit. That last lap before he just crossed the timeline was our fastest lap of the race, a 41.1, and that lap just then a 41.2. Vesfield by comparison a 41.8. Van der Velde is absolutely flying, and we saw this earlier in the race in terms of he just came alive and he never let go. As we see Haritojo's in the pits outside our commentary box window and drops down now. He's going for his final pit stop of this race with 36 minutes remaining, but it is all definitely starting to come back in for Van der Velde right now. He's got to find a way past way past field, I should say, rather than through field. He won't want to do that, of course, because the stewards will be giving a finger wag and then a half. But as he makes his way through 5 and up into 6, it's the case Van der Velde definitely trying to get that move on as they make the way through the corners. Now, meanwhile, a bit further down, as we hear that Walter Lux and is also into the pits right now, that will release Marcus Fox up into P15. And Lux in for his first pit stop. Ryan Meenan still staying out on circuit right now and lapping in the high 42s in P5. We'll have to wait and see when he comes in, but we focus on the here and now. And as we ride on board here with Van der Velde, you'd have to say that in terms of his performance so far, a very strong performance, but will he be able to find his way past field here? One thing to catch, another thing to pass, as they say. And as he makes his way into turn 13 here, on the brakes he comes, no way through yet, but Field very slow through the corner there. And I think that is to try and break Van der Velde's momentum by parking it slightly on apex. And as they make their way through 15, now coming down to 16, will the McLaren driver look for it here? He's very close. He could tempt the move, but then of course it's the long run down towards 1. But this time he's had a very nice run out the corner, but Field gets an even better run by comparison, and that's where Vesfield seems to have the advantage. As we see at Walter Lux, they're coming out the pits a lap down, these guys, as they make their way down towards turn number 2. And we see Vesfield going defensive here as Van der Velde looks around the outside to inside, but Field parks on the apex there, doesn't let him get the cutback opportunity. Into 3 they go, into the right hand kink before 4, and as they make their way into left hand here, you can see the differences in the two drivers' approaches here. Well, Van der Velde's got the pace, but he hasn't got the ability to put Vesfield in a position where he's compromised. Not yet, although you can see Van der Velde now starting to look at unconventional overtaking spots as they make their way through turn number 5 here. He goes for a nice early apex compared to Field, who literally misses the apex and then some. And as they make their way up into 6 here, not close enough once again, but trying to find his way on through as they exit the corner. And you can see that Field getting a little bit onto the grass as they make their way through the S's right now. Now Van der Velde getting closer and closer, and as they make their way around and up towards what is turn number 10 here, there's no way through right now, but I can imagine as they come into the downhill portion, that is where Van der Velde is going to go on the offensive here, as we now ride on board and look back from Vesfield to give you an idea of what it's like from his perspective, albeit looking backwards. And as they make their way down towards turn number 13, it's a situation right now where Vez will just be trying to keep his head down, defend where he needs to, and you can see holding the middle line here through 13, trying to cut the momentum on the McLaren behind. You can just see how close Van der Velde gets on the exit of the corner, but it's not enough for him to be able to then try and push on through. That Porsche just so strong on exit. It's only when they get into, say, 4th and 5th gear where that McLaren comes back alive by comparison, and it's another lap where Van der Velde is thwarted by the Porsche, that whilst it's slow onto the corners, it's quick enough to hold on as they now make their way across the timeline, 3/10 of a second between the pair of them. And we now look away, as I don't think there's going to be a way on through for Van der Velde for the time being, although I say that Van der Velde's going to try and size up a run around the outside here. As we can see, they make their way through the corner, and well, it's Van der Velde's not able to find a way on through, but I can tell you one driver who they'll very quickly catch up to at this rate, as they were just in the rearview picture, and that is Ryan Meenan, who is still out on circuit right now. He's yet to take his first pit stop here, and I think for the Irishman, he's doing everything in his power just to simply go long and try to stay out of trouble and let everybody else behind fight one another as he makes his way through the corners and up towards turn number 6, and through turn 6 he goes. But looking back, meanwhile, we can see Vesfield here. He's got that McLaren all over him once again, and Van der Velde looking for the move here into the S's. He can't quite find it, but Van der Velde doing everything in his power to stay right there, and he needs to be this close all the way up into the braking zone of 10. That's where Van der Velde's going to get it done. He'll get it done under brake, and he won't get it done in a straight line acceleration race. And as they make their way down into 10, you can see literally they're clamped to the back of that Porsche as they make their way out of the corner. This is the battle for P6 with 32 minutes remaining of this 1.5 hour race as they make their way down through 12 once again through Mineshaft corner and come charge on through. And that's a very good spot there, Lurb, in the Twitch chat regarding Mooney. We'll talk about that shortly as Vanderbilt goes round the outside here into 13. And we can see Vesfield defends it, and Vanderbilt's just not able to get back on circuit in time to secure the position. And instead he has to wait, and Vesfield making him work for every inch of road as they come out of the final corner, once again out of Ingwe corner, and now make their way down towards turn number 2. They go onto lap number 35 here, and the traffic ahead of them right now may be able to benefit Field for a time as they come right on down, but Vanderbilt's a little bit closer compared to the previous lap as they go charge on down, but they are costing each other so much time. As you can see, Vanderbilt goes left, he goes right, but he can't find a way to give up the fight as they make their way through turn 2 and up in towards 4 once again here. He's just stuck to the back of that Porsche. To be fair for Tinko at this point, I think he's just going to be thinking, okay, what can I do strategy wise? I've got one more pit stop to do as Phil gets it very wrong on the exit at turn number 4. He's cost himself momentum here, but we can see Vanderbilt's going to go around the outside. It's brave stuff here, going through turn 5 to try and go all the way around. It requires a lot of bravery, but in the end he can't quite find it. Instead has to back out, but he is all over the back of Field now, and I think it's only a matter of time before these two either come together or Vanderbilt comes on through. And well, which one's it going to be as they make their way through the S's here and up towards turn number 10? And I think the number 66 car at this point is going to have to find a way just to send it, because right now his race is being so heavily compromised by being stuck behind the very resilient Porsche as they make their way through turn at number 10. Now as they come through at this point, he is as close as he's ever been in the run down towards Mineshaft corner. They come roaring on down the hill. And behind them, I can tell you that Harry Phillips is gradually gaining on these guys in P8. He's gaining by approximately a second a lap on average. And as they make their way through turn number 13 right now, you can see Vanderbilt this time taking a much different approach. He's backing the car off and instead closing up to Field on exit here. Perhaps he's going to size up using the back marker of Crute there as they come down towards turn number 16. You can see Vesfield flash his lights as Crute literally just moving out the way there on the corner apex. And this is what Vanderbilt was wanting. He was wanting the back marker to cost Field some time, but in the end he's still not able to capitalise, and he's still 3 attempts back before they make their way down towards turn number 2. And as a result, as they come into the braking zone here, it's one of those situations where Field defends in the middle of the road. He knows that Vanderbilt's looking for that cutback. He knows where to put that car, but Vanderbilt this time tucks back in once again as we do look away towards the battle for P3 whilst this is going on. And I can tell you that right now Shematinsky is just holding off Luke Whitehead by 9 tenths of a second as Whitehead goes a bit wide there on the exit 5. We have to be careful. Track limit penalties are in play, of course, and that could, if he gets 3 warnings, it will be a potential drive-through penalty as he makes his way now. And one thing that was spotted earlier on, ladies and gentlemen, was this man right here, Raymond Mooney. Do not forget about him. He has made both of his stops and is now not expected to stop anymore. We've still got clear skies. We are not expecting any more pit stops after the scheduled ones. We've got no rain on the radar for the next 30 minutes, so it will be a cloudy race come the end of it, but not a rainy one. But right now Mooney, with no more pit stops to do, he could gain a lot of places, and I expect he will be coming up into the top 10 come the end of this one now. Do not miss out on him because he will be coming on through. Keep an eye on this one as he makes his way through the corner. We can see there Leo Boulay getting past what is the back marker there. I believe that is Rainer Effelstein moving out the way in the number 12 car of the Frenchman in the number 7 car as he comes through the left-hander there of turn number 4, and as he makes his way through. Meanwhile, it's a situation that a bit further up the field, we can see as these drivers make their way through, Vanderbilt still cannot find his way past Vesfield. These two the closest on circuit by a major margin, and just up the road from them we've got drivers coming together, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is by the FFS Racing Machines. I believe that is Killian Ryan Meenan, who's got a back marker and a Mercedes behind him, and will Ryan Meenan is still yet to pit as we see Vesfield going defensive once again. In fact, that's Lucas Seedor, my apologies, not Mercedes, that is the Porsche over Lucas Seedor behind, and Lucas Seedor by comparison is all the way down in P24, so he is arguably a back marker, but he's behind a very slow moving Ferrari by comparison with the guys that are behind him and ahead of him as they make their way through once again and come charging up towards turn number 5. But there's no way through for the McLaren right now as we head up towards turn number 6. As these drivers make their way on through once again, it is the case that we can see that just ahead of them as they start to head towards that traffic, Can Vesfield make the traffic work to his advantage once again, or will Van der Velde be able to find a way to get the traffic to work to his advantage by comparison? That'll be the question that hangs over the head, but you can see Van der Velde very close this time, very close indeed. He's almost a 10th off, and as they go into the braking zone for 10, Van der Velde tries to go around the outside here. Now this is brave from Van der Velde. If he can make this work, no, he goes a bit deep, and the car just slides there as he comes off of the exit curb, and he loses all the momentum, and I think now he's got a long way to go to build that one back up. I thought Van der Velde was going to try and make it around the outside. He just couldn't get it done. But meanwhile, further up the road, I can tell you that Luke Whitehead, whilst all that battling's going on, Luke Whitehead just carrying the momentum around right now, chasing after Shervatinsky. And as they come across the timeline here, you can see a bit further up the road, he just went through the camera very quickly, is Zavolov. And right now, as they make their way on down, Oleg Zavolov here in the S&P Racing eSport machine, well, he's only 7 seconds off our race leader. And Daniel Chelepin right now is only, with that gap and the fact that Zavolov is currently only 3.6 seconds ahead of Shervatinsky and Whitehead, you'd imagine, depending on how that second stop plays out, we could see these four all trade places. Because we did see that Zavolov's pit stop was a very fast one by comparison with his peers. And I think as a result, it may mean that he's got to take a longer stop in his second pit stop. But we will wait to see who pulls the gun in terms of our top 10 on that second stop. Because nobody at the moment wants to make that pit stop. They're all trying to stay out there for as long as possible. And I think for our leaders in particular, they're enjoying the amount of relatively clear air they've got on circuit as they make their way around once again through Kyalami. But as we can see further down in P10 right now, we've got Matteo Morano here, who in a bit of a no man's land, he's 8 seconds off of the back of what is and Nembrini, and well, no, sorry, 7 seconds off the back of Nembrini as our timing screen is updated, and he's got a sizable gap to Kevin Gellin behind. I think for Morano at this point, he's just trying to muscle home this Ferrari into that P10 position. He'll be very pleased with this one, all things considered, but it has been a solid drive. But 25 minutes still remaining, still plenty that can happen over the course of the proceedings as we take a look further down the order briefly. And it is the case that right now, as we're looking at this, and we look down to P20, where Haritojo, after clearing both of his pit stops right now, and he's another one to watch out for. I don't think he's going to be coming up into the top 10 per se, but I do think as we see Leo Boulet, there's still a stop and go 30-second penalty, so if that's not clear, Boulet having a horrific end to his race. But meanwhile, Haritojo here, I think could be jumping up towards the top half of the run up towards the top 10. So looking around P13, P14 when those second stops come in. Now we are, just as I say, waiting for the trigger to be pulled on the second round of pit stops as Boulet comes in for his stop and go. I can see out my commentary box window right now, but the field's starting to break open a little bit once again here as we look a bit further down the order. And right now the last of our runners out on circuit, well, Andres Mesa in fact parked up. He's been parked up there some time, so we have lost Andres Mesa. The last of our runners right now, Nestor Magia, making his way down towards what is turn number 37 down in what is P38. We've had the best part of 4+ retirements. We lost Alexei Jugov at the start of the race with the technical issues that did not allow him to leave the pit lane. We also lost Cormac, Ryan and Meenan after the incident on the opening lap. We've also lost Alexei Kopsov, and Andres Mesa's had to retire the car, and I believe Mesa having technical issues with the car ever since the early incident. Very unfortunate for the Spaniard, who was looking strong to recover. But meanwhile, looking from down the bottom of the field and talking about our retirements, two drivers who are still pressing on all the same. We can see it's the case that Ivan Fornes here in P17. Well, just ahead of him, we've got Chris Zoig and Soldatov here as they make their way through turn 3. And it's Soldatov who comes past the Porsche driver, and they're both yet to hit, to be fair. And it looks like Chris Zoig once again in this horrible place where he hasn't got the ability to go on the full defensive, or if he has, he's cost himself so much time. And Soldatov there coming on through and making it look rather pedestrian as he goes sideways there through turn number 5. The rear end just stepping out there, and you can see behind Chris Zoiga now has got the pressure of what is Fornes behind, but Fornes going a bit deep through turn number 5. And as they make the way, that's Marcus Fox at the front of your camera in P14. These guys battling for P15 through to 17. If they can pull Fox into this battle, this will really open things up as the trigger is pulled on Ryan Meenan's pit stop. He's making his first of his 2 stops from what was P5 at the time. He will drop down the order, but Fornes looks to the inside of Zoiga into turn 10. He can't quite find it, but Zoiga goes a little deep on exit here, but you can see as the road turns round, it's the case that that's the line he wanted, the Porsche driver, and now they make the way down through Mineshaft corner once again, and looking very strong. It's Fornes behind as they go into the braking zone, and Fornes is going to try and go all the way around the outside, and then cut back to the inside at the last possible moment. You can see Zoiga, they're placing the car well, blocking that cutback attempt, and instead making Fornes have to wait a longer period of time. But as they come out of 15 and into 16, there's a long straight that awaits them coming out the final corner, and we can see behind Mooney already closing up to the back of this battle. He's only 3.5 seconds behind right now before they come to the timing line, and as a result we would expect that when they pit, Mooney is going to be right with these guys and chasing them down as they make the way down towards turn number 2. And you can see Fornes looking to the inside here under braking. Zoiga tries to squeeze the door shut as much as he can, but he knows when he's got an Aston Martin is inside, and now it's a drag race up the hill here into turn 4. And can Fornes hold himself around the outside to inside? He does indeed. The Joker's eSport team here parks it on the apex and gets it nicely done. Zoiga down to P17, Fornes up to P16, but now he's looking to come back into turn 5, and the Swiss has not got enough momentum, almost but not quite, as they make the way through 5 and up into 6 here. And now I think it's the case that we're going to be seeing Fornes try to make the breakaway, as meanwhile further up the road I can tell you it's the case that Tinker van der Veld's the closest he's been for some time, or he was moments ago, but he's gone a bit deep in fact going into the final corner. So van der Veld's still chasing down Vesfield, and ahead of them, oh, this is kicking off. Meanwhile we can see it's the situation right now where we can see Zavolov has got, well, Shermatinsky's already found his way through, and that's Shermatinsky at the head of this pack. And I think the two SME Racing eSport drivers have traded positions into turn 2, and I'm hearing that from one of the trackside marshals. They traded places into turn 2, and in case it's Zavolov now looking on the inside here, it's Zavolov who's having to defend to the inside versus Whitehead as they make their way through 6. Now Zavolov has really dropped off the pace over the last couple of laps. His last lap of 42.9 versus 41.6 for Shermatinsky and a 41.3 for Whitehead. Whitehead is coming on through, and he's going to look for it here into turn 10. He can't quite find it with the Aston Martin driver going very heavy on the brakes and just simply letting the car come round and gradually here. But this is letting Shermatinsky break away. This is the battle for P2. And as they make the way, well, P3 effectively, Shermatinsky's in P2, and he breaks away. So Zavolov in P3 now has to defend. And as they make the way into the right-hander of 13, you can see just how Whitehead's trying to find every which way on through, but he can't quite find it right now. And that Aston Martin proving to be a bulky behemoth in terms of just not being passable as they make the way down into 16. No way through this time as we ride on board with the Porsche driver here. And I think the only way he's going to get it done is through the corners here as they make the run down towards turn 2. Once again, they go on to lap 40. And you can see, despite being in the toe here, and in fact getting the distant toe off a back marker ahead as well, with that double toe, he's just not close enough as Whitehead. He can't catch up. And as they make the way into this heavy braking zone once again for turn 2, Shermatinsky's trying to find his way through the back markers already, and right now Zavolov has just held position as much as he possibly can. And as they come through turn 3 and up into 4, he looks to the inside, and as we look to the helicam, he goes a bit deep. Can the Russian come back on him here as they make the way out towards turn 5? You can see Whitehead defending this one. He will not want to let that Aston Martin get on his inside into 5. He goes onto the racing line. The Aston Martin's still there, but he's not able to find a way back through. And Whitehead moves back up into P3, and that is a critical pass in the scheme of things right now to be on the podium. Now he's got the 2 back markers to clear with urgency here. As we can see, one of the Armataria red machines, the Mercedes, moves out of the way immediately. And as they come down through, what is the S's here? It's the case that Whitehead trying to break away already and hunt down Shermatinsky once again, who he was riding all over the back of only moments ago. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Tinker van der Velde is still stuck behind Vesfield. He's still trying to find a way past the Porsche with 18.5 minutes to go. We've still got 16 drivers. Our top 16 have yet to make their second stop. It's all chop and change as van der Velde tries to go around the outside, and we can see Field having to give him the space this time as van der Velde is frying the kitchen sink to try and come on through. As Sorensen moves out the way there, the Dane doesn't want to get involved in this as the Dutchman versus the Swiss made the way down into turn 13. We see van der Velde trying to squeeze Field to the inside here. Field returns the favour as they come through 13. There's no way through for the Dutchman. Field is making that Porsche so wide you'd think it takes up the whole road. And as they make the way down to 16 once again here, I can only imagine how hard Field is having to work that car right now. He must be dripping buckets of sweat in battling with van der Velde, because Velde is all over him every corner, trying to find every bit of space to make the move, but there is just no way through for the McLaren driver right now. And whether this is the battle for P5 or the win, it's going to feel like a win for Phil come the end of it, as Vanderbilt tries to go around the outside again. He's got his nose in on the inside, up through 3. Phil can't cut this one off this time, and as Vanderbilt looks to go around the outside into 4, he looks at the cutback here, and he goes a little bit deep, does Phil, as they emerge from the corner. Now Vanderbilt's going to have the overrun here in towards 5. He's going to look around the outside as they make the way into the right-hander. He's got his nose ahead, but can he carry the momentum through? It's side by side through 5. Vanderbilt's got ahead, and I think he's done it. I think it's taken him the best part of 12 laps, but he's finally found a way through as they emerge out of turn 6. My goodness, what a fantastic battle between the two of them, and I think Vanderbilt has got it done. It's taken him an absolute effort to get it done, but in the end he is up into P5. But now we await the pit stops, of course, which could shake things up all over again after what has been an absolute masterclass in defending from Vesfield. But to be fair, these two, I'm calling it already, ladies and gentlemen, battle of the season between these two. There's just no way you can have that level of racing without two sportsmen go toe-to-toe. Fantastic stuff. But whilst we could sing their laurels for days, we now look to Marcus Fox in P15, who is chasing down Soldatov here for P14 as they make their way through the corners and as they come charging up towards what is, coming through turn number 6 here, as I get all mixed up in terms of quarter numbers. Goodness me, it's the case that Marcus Fox pressing on, and meanwhile our leaders, none of them pitting as of yet, all waiting in terms of when's the first driver to pull the trigger on those final pit stops. And I can imagine that when we see one pit, we will see them all pit. They're all waiting right now with 16 minutes to go. The time locally is now 22 minutes past 4. Track temperatures come down by 2 degrees compared to when it started. We've got an ambient temperature still at 22 degrees centigrade. We've got no sign of rain on the radar. It will be finishing under cloudy skies, and as our drivers make their way around right now, it's the case where Fox will have to try and find a way to close up to that rather aggressive Aston Martin of Soldatov. And we know the M2 competition driver, very fast but very fair when he's in his heyday. And meanwhile, a bit further up the road, Kevin Gelling in P11 right now, chasing down Ryan Meenan. And this, ladies and gentlemen, shows you just how much time Ryan Meenan gained by running so long in his opening stint. He went from P5 when he finally pitted after an hour on his opening stint. He's come back out in P10, and you can imagine now his next stop, I'm going to assume it's going to be another short stop as well, because if Ryan Meenan pulls this off, he may end up well inside the top 10 when all is said and done. We'll wait and see as the pink machine tries to hold off Kevin Gelling, who's the focus of our cameraman right now, as they come charging through turn number 6 here and make the way up towards 7 and 8, and then to the S's they come here. But I think Gelling's going to have something to say about Ryan Meenan being ahead of him very shortly, because you can see Gelling really making the pace work right now, and it's the case that Gelling in the last lap was half a second faster than Meenan ahead of him as they make the way into left-hander at turn number 10. You can see the difference in attitudes of the two cars here. Gelling just able to attack the corners with more confidence, and I think it is because Ryan Meenan is trying to pull a very long pair of stints, or trying to do something to manage the car where others are pushing so hard. And we can see the ITR driver now inching ever closer as they make the way into the right-hander at turn number 13. They come on through, and as they make the way out of the corner and head down towards 14 and 15, we can see as they make the way into that tricky right-hander here, getting closer and closer with each and every corner, as meanwhile looking further around the field. Well, I was going to say look around further field, but I think Gelling here is going to be in with a potential move on the exit of what is 16 in the run down towards 2. As they make the way through the corners here, will he look for it? No, I think he's too far back when all is said and done. But further down, we can see it's the case that Mike Crute, meanwhile, the SAS Racing driver, will, after what was a bit of a difficult race in the season opener at Suzuka, he is to make another stop. Yeah, all the drivers around him have made their 2 stops, so I think Mike Crute will be seeing himself drop a bit further down the field, but he is soldiering on all the same after making his way up to P13 before his first pit stop right now. I think for Crute it's a constant learning experience, and I know there's a lot of the SAS Racing guys right now cheering him on at home and hoping that he can bring home a result inside the top 30, but we will wait and see how it plays out for him as we look from towards the back of our field to a bit further down the field, and it's Pavel Pushkarev right now who has got the pressure of hunting down what is Pantera ahead of us, and he makes his way through turn number 3 and up into 4, and it's the case still Pantera in the Ferrari, Pavel Pushkarev in the Ferrari as well, the two drivers in the same 488 Evo GT3 machine, but only one of them is going to come out on top for P27 as they make the way up into the right hand here of turn number 5, and it looks like right now with Leo Boulet also closing up behind, and he's going to try and muscle his way on through. A bit further up the road in P26 we've got Andre Jacqueline here who is hunting down Tan as they come through a left-hander at turn 10. Tan goes very deep here as they make the way out of 10 and down towards Mineshaft corner at 12 here. They'll build up as much momentum as they possibly can, and you can see Jacqueline all over the back of the Ferrari ahead of him. Both of them have made their pit stops. They are battling for position now out on circuit. There's no strategy now to play into this one other than the setup of the cars, and as they make the way through the corner you can see Jacqueline there trying the cutback, but he went too high in the apex curve and in fact almost beached the front right end tyre and caused the car to lose a lot of momentum, as we are still waiting for any pit stops from our leaders. So the battles right now are outside the top 20 and building up somewhat, but we look from this to one driver who inside the top 20 is now making the moves, having made his 2 stops. It's Raymond Mooney as he looks to go round the outside of what's Fornes, but Fornes into the pits, and Fornes has pulled the gun on what is the first of our pit stops for our top 16. So as Fornes comes in, how will everybody react now as Mooney is going to make his way out the field? How much he'll gain, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm putting my money we're going to be seeing the Scotsman inside the top 10 come the end of this race, because right now, in terms of his pace, he's constantly in the low 42s. The guys ahead of him, everybody in the top 10 now is on a 42, a low or a mid 42. So Mooney is matching them for pace. He's not going slightly faster. And I wonder how long it'll be before we see the whole swathe of pit stops kick off as Mooney just soldiers on. Meanwhile, further back down once again as Fornes is coming out of the pit, it is the case that looking further down the order, we can see that Cyril Pantera here is holding on to that P27. It's Leo Boulet who's actually, in fact, got ahead of the pair of them, and Pushkarev has fallen a bit further back. So I think Boulet has made a 2-for-1 pass in towards turn number 2, and he's now hunting down Andre Jacqueline who's just up the road from him, as meanwhile we can see Tan here. Well, he's battling with Andre Jacqueline. Jacqueline's going to go around the outside of Tan, and as they make their way out of turn 10 and down towards 12, side by side between the Ferrari and the Aston Martin driver, they come roaring on down the hill here. Now the Aston Martin will have the advantage initially. Oh, goodness me, there's contact between the two of them, and Jacqueline's sent for a spin, and Tan backs off the throttle immediately here. And I think this is sportsmanship. He's got to be careful because he's parking up towards an apex, but the sportsmanship shown from Tan to let Jacqueline rejoin and go racing with him is something else in its entirety. You don't normally see this, but it's great to see as we see Tan waiting for Jacqueline to return to a racing speed before going racing again. I think that's unfortunate the two of them came together very close side by side there, but great respect and sportsmanship, you have to admit, as they make their way down towards turn 16. But meanwhile, looking away from the sportsmanship to up front, Cherepenin right now, our leader, is making his way down through turn number 13, and as he comes all the way through and makes his way through the right-hander, it's the case as he comes charging on down towards the pits. Will he peel in this time or will he stay out? No, he stays out once again as he makes his way round. And meanwhile, a bit further down the order, I'm hearing that Gellin has made his way past Ryan Meenan. We haven't quite caught that on camera, but he's literally run away from Ryan Meenan, and I think Meenan has dropped a long way back. In fact, Gellin and Ryan Meenan both having some very poor lap times on that last lap. Neither of them have been in the pits. I wonder if there's been an incident between the two of them. We'll have to wait and see about that one. I'm sure the stewards will be investigating that if there has been an incident between the pair of them, but we will wait and find out a bit later as they make their way around circuit once again here. But I think both drivers have been for a little bit of the wars, and I think in the chat as well, Cormac Ryan Meenan saying Gellin, Killian, and I think it might be the case that there has been some contact between them. But meanwhile, as we see here, Gellin making his way out of what is turn number 11 down towards 12, we look a bit further up our order once again, and we take a look at Zavolov, who after being passed by both Whitehead and Shematinsky has fallen away to a degree compared to his peers in the top 3. It's not to say that he's out of this one yet, but he is running approximately a second slower than Shematinsky and Whitehead right now, and I think this is where that strategy difference is playing into its hands. as they make their way on through. But we can see here Zabolov just pushing on all the same through the S's right now, and I think looking to bring home at least a P4 if not higher. But we are waiting to see when the pit stops will start to occur, as meanwhile I can tell you that having got past Fornes with Fornes peeling into the pit, Raymond Mooney is now closing up to the back of Marcus Fox as Chris Zoyger is into the pits, and what was at the time P17 is listed right now, as we see Mooney goes to the move on the inside here, and we can see Marcus Fox not defending this one, and I think he knows that Mooney's going to come on through. He's just letting it go here, and whilst it may be a case of some of you may be saying right now, well surely Fox should defend here, I think Fox is very aware of the fact that he and Mooney are in two different races and he doesn't want to compromise his own race time, and as a result now Mooney will really appreciate that one, and he will hold on to P15 for the time being, as Chris Zoyger has come out of the pit. Well, he'll be coming out of the pit soon in somewhere in the region of P21 after all is said and done in the pits. But we are waiting to see as Vesfield is into the pits now from what was P6. The battle for P5, I should say. Vesfield the first to react now, and I will expect more stops to be coming very shortly, as meanwhile we look back further down the order. We can see Dennis DeMarco meanwhile making his way in P10 through turn number 13 right now, and DeMarco, well, he's got nobody really around him to battle. He's in a bit of a peaceful place as he makes his way on through the right-hander turn number 15, and we can see behind there that is Walter Lux going a little bit wide on the exit of 15, pretty much following what DeMarco did but exacerbating it slightly. But it does look as though at this point DeMarco just pressing on all the same, and well, waiting to pick the right time to go into the pits, but they haven't got long left to go into the pits, any of these drivers, as we look towards Ryan Meenan right now, who have a very bruised and battered Ferrari there, and the front panel of that car looks like it wants to come off very shortly. Well, the next driver will be coming up behind him will be Mooney here, Raymond Mooney, and you can see that Ferrari really struggling for straight line speed, and already Mooney looking and peeling out there, trying to sort of send a signal, I think, to the driver ahead. Look, I'm going to be coming on through soon, do you mind? We'll wait and see as they make their way to the corner. Mooney looks from very far back there but isn't able to find it. Well, he's going to have to be sensible about it, because Ryan Meenan will want to defend this if he can, or at least hold him up for some time. And I think Mooney at this point, we're just hoping the Ferrari driver gives it up sooner rather than later, as we're hearing more pit stops occurring. Our leaders are coming into the pits right now, and that's the case. Sherapinin and Whitehead both in, as we do see there it's Mooney just trying to find his way on in into turn 5, but Meenan staying firm right now. Mooney will wait until later on in the lap as he looks to the outside here into turn number 6, and we see a drive-through penalty for Gellin, and I believe that will be related to the incident that was reported to us in the chat moments ago, as we see Mooney looks to the inside here into the S's. It's not clean, and there is contact between the two of them as they make their way out to the S's here, and I think Mooney will feel he had to get it done because he was losing time, and Meenan defending as much as he could with a damaged car, as we see Fox looks to the inside, and Fox there with a very late move to the inside, tapping Meenan. Ryan Meenan getting bruised and battered all around by everyone around him right now, and that is very unfortunate. I can sympathise for the driver who's just trying to bring it home, is the Irishman, as he makes his way around once again. But meanwhile, as we look from P15 back up towards our leader, it is the case that Shematinsky has stayed out as the Savolov and Tinker van der Velde. Sherapinin is out ahead of Whitehead, and he's only out ahead by 3 seconds. And meanwhile, with regards to the stewarding, I believe, yes, it is a drive-through penalty for car number 723, and the reason for that is because of spinning car 27 off track on entry into turn 6, and car number 27 is Killian Ryan Meenan. So that explains why Ryan Meenan's car looks like it's been through the walls, and why we saw the two drivers quite far down the order when we panned over to them earlier on. As we continue to see Shevatinsky making his way, and he's into the pits right now. What about Zavolov? Will he react as well here? This is critical in terms of the pit stops now, as it all starts to come together, and we see how the strategy is planned, and it's effectively a 4 to 3 minute sprint to the finish line as everybody comes on through. Tinko van der Velde, well, he's staying out for one more lap. Here is the Dutchman, so he's going to go the longest of them all in terms of our leaders. And I think for the Dutchman, what he's praying on at this point is that the other leaders will battle one another when they all come out the pits. We will wait and see, of course, how that all plays out, as we see it. Sherapinin right now making his way down towards turn number 2, where Shermatinsky's coming out ahead of Sherapinin. This is going to be close as they make their way through, but I think there he is, and that is the gap between the two of them. Shermatinsky making those pit stops work to his advantage. He has jumped ahead of Whitehead once again, and where's Luke Whitehead? There he is in the rear of your picture. The gap between them only 2 seconds, and it's the case that through the pit window it has worked out massive lead for Shemetinsky, and Cherepin Whitehead right now will need to go full attack for the next 3 minutes to try and get the place back. Zabolov, however, not as fortunate. He's come out in P5, and as a result now will have to go chasing. He's got a lot of traffic between him and the guys up front, as we do see Vesfield with that earlier pit stop has come out in P7, and Morano ahead of him is yet to pit, so you can imagine that Vesfield will be coming back into P6 as a minimum. But what about Tinko van der Velde? That will be the question for Vesfield. Can he get out ahead of the McLaren driver, or will the McLaren driver, who's yet to pit, have done enough to jump back out ahead of Vesfield? And I can only imagine the obscenities that will be in that cockpit of the Dutchman if he sees Vesfield ahead of him once he's made his second pit stop. We will see very shortly, because I believe Van der Velde will have to make his pit stop within the next 2 laps, or at least on this lap even, depends on how it goes. But meanwhile, Shemetinsky, as we look back towards our battle for P2, he is closing up gradually to Cherepin right now, and I think we are just waiting to see whether it's going to be the case that the two S&P Racing eSport drivers decide to stay in formation, or whether we do see them squabble for position right at the end. And remember, it's only a Drivers' Championship this. There is no Constructors' Championship, so all points are on the line. But will they play it safe, as we see Cherepin go wide there on the exit of the final corner, and that will most likely be a track limits warning as they make the way down towards turn number 2, and they have got one more lap after this. It's the penultimate lap. Tinko van der Velde is going to leave it until the last possible lap to pit, so in the end he's just going to go all in and try to hope for a miracle in terms of the drivers behind battling and gain more places there by going to the overcut, as Morano's into the pits, which will release Vesfield back up into P6. But right now we are focused on the battle for what is effectively the lead when all is said and done, and it's Cherepin versus Shemetinsky and Whitehead just behind, as the three of them are only separated by 2 seconds from P2 to P4 as they come through turn at number 5 once again here for the penultimate time of asking. Now as they make their way through the corners, how will it play out? That will be the question in their mind. I think for all of these guys right now, they will just be hoping to keep it together and for nothing dramatic to happen right at the end. None more so the Cherepin. He is maintaining that gap to Shemetinsky, but Whitehead's the one who's really got to push here as they emerge from the S's and head up into turn 10. 1 more minute to go. They will have one more lap after this. They will do a 53rd lap when all is said and done. Meanwhile, Tinko van der Velde will be coming into the pits very shortly, I could assure you. As we can see, Shemetinsky really gaining in the run out of 10 through 11 as they come down the hill here. And as we ride on board with the Bentley driver, he is really doing everything in his power to stay with Cherepin. You can see Cherepin really struggling on the apex there, and as a result, Shemetinsky actually had to react and back off the throttle. I think at this point, if there's another mistake like that from Cherepin and Shemetinsky times it right, he could be trying to snatch the winners. Van der Velde is into the pits right now, so as our drivers make their way out of the final corner, we go onto the final lap, and it is the case that your race leader, Daniel Cherepin, is only leading by what is half a second right now as they come roaring down towards turn number 2. Behind him is Ivan Shemetinsky, and behind the pair of them is Luke Whitehead right now as he makes his way down. Meanwhile, further back we can see Tinko van der Velde come out of the pits in P4. He's jumped Zabolov and Vesfield, but where is Zabolov, you ask? He's here and he's coming down towards turn 2, but it's not enough, so Tinko van der Velde has jumped into P4, and I think he'll be thinking at this point, if only he hadn't been held up by Vesfield, he could have come further. But right now, let's look back to the battle for the lead as they make their way through turn number 5 for the final time. The white flag was out as they cross the checkered line, and as they make their way in towards turn number 6, it is the case that right now our top 3 all nose to tail as they make their way through 6 and into the S's they come. There's some traffic up ahead. They may catch it at the very end of the lap. They'll have to wait and see as they make their way on through. It's Andre Jacklin at the foreground of your picture. There is a 2-second gap between them and Jacklin. I think they'll be safe from catching up to him. And that will, of course, help out Shemetinsky massively in terms of he'll have a clean run. It'll help out Cherepin as well because he won't have to worry about the back marker. As they come out of turn 11 and down towards turn number 12 in, we can see the Bentley driver looking for that potential move there, but he's not close enough this time as they make their way into 13. It's the McLaren who breaks first, of course, and as they make their way through the corner, you can see the Bentley just closing up as much as he possibly can on corner exit. But as they now come into 15, there's only one more corner to go after this as they come rip-roaring through, and as they make their way down into the final corner, he started on pole, and as he exits, he will come home the winner of round number 2 by the smallest of margins, it will be Danilo Sherepenin, who wins at Kyalami ahead of Ivan Shematinsky and Luke Whitehead, and behind them in P4, it wasn't to be a podium, but it was a brilliant drive all the same. Tinko van der Velde will take P4 ahead of Oleg Zavolov there in P5. It's then going to be Vedsfield who emerges from the final corner, not in the top 5, but almost there, coming home in P6 when all is said and done. A brilliant drive from the Swiss as well. It will then be Harry Phillips who comes home in P7. A quiet drive, but a considerate one, and one which sees him gains major points in his championship campaign in P7. And then Christian Nembrini, who could forget the Quartet Racing driver here, who brings home a P8 and a good drive from the Italian to match up with his drive at Suzuka, if not improve upon it. And then it's going to be Raymond Mooney, who I said watch out for. He's jumped all the way from P20 to P9 through his pit stop strategy, and Matteo Morano will bring home at the end of our top 10 in P10 ahead of Dennis DeMarco, who emerges on the final corner in P11 with Leo Boulay behind, who I believe is a lap down. And then it will be a Christian Krivik here, who the Dragons eSport driver, brilliant driving from him, a P12 today and one to watch out for in the rest of the season. It's then going to be Konstantin Soldatov here, who comes home P13 ahead of Mario Haritojo in P14, the Cosmos Racing Team driver. And then wrapping up our top 15 is Marcus Fox here as he crosses the timeline. And Fox with another quiet but well-managed race ahead of Ivan Fornes, and then Mattia Vacca just missing out on P16 at the end. Killian Ryan Meenan with an interesting strategy, undermined by a number of incidents, but Ryan Meenan, you have to say, drove a very good race. Kevin Gellin P19, and Chris Zoiger will be wrapping up our top 20. Brilliant drive from all of our drivers, but the one driver who I think will be breathing a huge sigh of relief is this man right here, who we're going to hear from very shortly, Sherepenin. We'll be back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, for the post-race podium interviews. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are back, and what a fantastic conclusion to what was a brilliant race up and down the field at Kyalami. The weather didn't quite open up in the end when we wanted it to potentially to in the race to throw a spanner in the works, but we saw the weather cause carnage in qualifying and really shake up the order, and then we were on for a treat of a race with our top three being separated by only a second come the checkered flag. But to do things differently today, we're going to be starting off with our third place man of Luke Whitehead. Let's get him in the interview room and see what he has to say. Hello Luke, can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you loud and clear, Paul.
Luke, a fantastic drive from yourself to third place in the end, and I think you only wanted one more lap. If you could have anything for Christmas, it was one more lap and you would have perhaps had a chance at the win. How do you feel about third place?
Yeah, one more lap. One more lap. That was all me and Ivan needed. We were just talking just then in the waiting room. One more lap. That was all we needed. I can't complain too much. I mean, this is my first full-length race in the Porsche since the new update, and I've really not done that much. I've probably done, what, about 3-ish hours total in the Porsche in this new update, so I'm grossly underprepared. So, you know, to be on pace, I'm really happy with. I mean, I'm gutted it wasn't wet, because in the wet I was about 9/10 up the road from practice times, but yeah, I can't complain too much. I mean, I ran a pre-update setup and in the race it just didn't work. The front was just too stiff and it just didn't turn. So unfortunate, but it was good, valuable lesson learned, especially with a bunch of other championships starting soon. So yeah, I can't really complain. I had a really good battle with Zolobov and Shematinsky, so yeah, great job to those guys. It was a really, really fun race.
Oh, that's great to hear. And just taking a step back, qualifying seemed to be about trying to get the best possible lap in whilst the circuit was damp rather than wet. Just take us through what it's like from your perspective in qualifying, because you got a lap in early and that put you P2. Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty fortunate in a sense, but also very unfortunate, because obviously I knew that the track was going to get slower after the first lap, so I rushed out, but I didn't lower my pressures, and I'd just been out on a soaking wet track prior to it, so my pressures I think were 4 psi too high, which in the wet is huge. It would probably cost me about over half a second, I'd have thought, especially because the tyre just doesn't grip, it doesn't bite, so it definitely cost a lot. I think also the lap was pretty messy. I lost about 2/10 in the final sector, so it probably could and should have been pole, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean a lot of people fared a lot worse, and it sort of ruined the race because of it, so I can count myself a little bit lucky at least. And I do have to ask, translating that from qualifying into the start of the race, we saw you try to go for the move for the lead early on, but you didn't quite have the momentum to secure it. Was the goal to try just get ahead and break away? Well, I mean, I knew from the rolling up lap, and in fact from turn 1 I knew that the setup wasn't good, because I just felt, usually you can feel the car bite, you know, especially in the Porsche you can feel the front just turning quite aggressively. It's usually quite a pointy car, but with this I could just feel the front wasn't, like, there was no sort of there's no weight transfer on the front, so it just pushed straight on. I was like, it's gonna be a hard race. So my goal was to try and get in front, but obviously it's very easy just to plop the car on the inside of the corner and hold the line. So Danella did a really good job. You know, they did everything that they needed to do, and I obviously couldn't do anything about it. And then from then on, it was just about damage limitation. And to be honest, the pace was actually really good at the end. I think I was probably within a 10th or so of the fastest lap. Sorry. So yeah, it got better. But yeah, I pretty much did the maximum that I could have done without the extra lap. Well, it was a fantastic job by yourself, but I do have to ask, after the first round of pit stops, what was going through your mind at that point? Because we saw the change up, we saw Sherepenin still ahead, but then we saw how Zabolov and Shematinsky were really getting into the mix of the fight for the podium amongst yourself. Were you having to adapt the strategy then, or did you just stick to your guns and think the pace will come? I mean, I knew Ivan was very fast, just because he is very fast in general, and obviously the Bentley, I don't know how it fared from the update, but I knew it was always a strong car on that track, especially on race fuel. But obviously I saw that Danila and Zolobov had got a big old gap, so I thought, I don't think they changed tyres, and obviously we saw their pace just absolutely drop off at the end, and I kind of knew that I was only racing Ivan, you know, in terms of genuine reference, I guess, because you never really know what the other guys are doing. They could change in the final pit stop, although it's very unlikely they could. So, I was only really racing Ivan and just seeing where that put me at the end of it. And obviously, P3, not amazing, but I can't complain too much. As I say, a second and a third in the first 2 rounds of the championship, you can't really get much better than that.
Oh, indeed. Now, looking ahead to round number 3 in a week's time, we head to Bathurst. How are you feeling for the ride up the mountain and back down it?
I mean, before the last 2 races, I'd have probably said not very confident, simply because it's the Porsche at Bathurst, which is one of the more unsafe cars, and it also struggles down the straight immensely. And I mean, it still does, but from what I have gathered from the recent testing that I've done, it doesn't seem as snappy. The car's definitely a lot more stable, and it also doesn't suffer from straight line speed as much. So hopefully we'll do okay. Again, it will probably be like damage limitation, but then I know that Laguna Seca comes up, and I'm pretty strong there, and I think the Porsche is pretty strong there, and obviously I think it's Spa is the final round.
Yes, that's correct.
I've got no idea. So I know I've got at least 1 good track and then 2 decent ones. So we'll see. We only know until we don't know until we get onto the grid for that race.
That's very true, but we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time. But until then, congratulations once again on a fantastic drive to 3rd place, and we'll see you in a week.
Thank you very much, Paul. Take care.
All the best. So hearing there from Luke Whitehead, happy with his performance, all things said and done, but at the same time you could hear, I think, just not necessarily frustration, but also feeling that if things had been slightly different today with regards to qualifying, if he'd had the lap more nailed on, alternatively the setup of the car, there could have been just perhaps a little bit more there, and perhaps come the end of the race we may have seen him be the one who was able to take the positions. But to be fair, to be driving with a Porsche that wasn't running the right, as we're hearing from in there, with the right setup in terms of running an old setup which didn't have the turning capability, and he still forced it through the corners at Kyalami. That goes to show that Whitehead, when he absolutely gets it spot on, I think he's going to be flying. So we're going to have to keep our eyes out for him, whether it's at Mount Panorama or his preferred circuit there, as we heard, Laguna Seca in round number 4. I think he's going to be in contention, not just to be on the podium. Could he be a race winner? Well, going from one podium finisher to another, it's time for us to catch up with Ivan Shermatinsky as we just pull him in to the interview room. Hello, Ivan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, absolutely. Hello.
Ivan, brilliant drive from yourself to come home in 2nd place, and a very close battle between yourself, your teammate Sherapenin, and Whitehead at the end. How does it feel to have come home in 2nd?
Yeah, it felt awesome. Quite frankly, I didn't practice too much for this round, and I didn't know what to expect. And with this quali or free practice, when it was dry, then wet, then again dry, it was very tricky conditions. I know that Bentley is not so good in wet conditions, so I was hoping for the dry quali, and I kind of got it, but not really. The point is that this quali was probably one of the most trickiest I have ever seen in like more than 2,500 hours in this game, because it was basically a super pole for everyone. It was only the first lap when you could post your fastest lap, because starting from the 2nd, the rain already increased, so every lap, including the 2nd and after it, was already slower, so you had only 1 chance to post the lap, and it kind of went this way. So where everybody were after the first lap of the qualifying session, they stayed there, and I got P6. I was really happy, because if it would be only wet, I would probably be around 10. Then coming to the race, I think I got lucky in the turn 3, where I forgot who was the driver in Ferrari, but he basically took out Raymond Mooney and himself, and I just got 2 positions. I was just behind my teammate Oleg Zholobov, and Danila Cherepenin was just flying off away. After a few laps, I noticed that I had a pace to go through. I asked Oleg to let me by. Pretty much the first stint, I was trying to get past through the Porsches, which I kind of ended up doing. And after that, yeah, second stint was really hard to do, because me and Luke Whitehead, for about half an hour, we were just behind each other, like fighting, and the delta was inside of the 0.3 range, pretty much. It never like exited the half a second to 8 tenths between us range for like half an hour. It was really intense and really hard, and I didn't expect this pace from myself, of course. In the end, on the first like few final laps, we've caught up to Danila, because after all, the strategy to change the tires was better, because Danila and Oleg, they didn't change tires, and I did, and Luke did, and also Tinko did, so we were the fastest in the race. And because Danila finished higher in the first race, I just took the sort of team move to protect his first position, so he can score more points. And in my I was in charge of keeping my second place and not letting Luke by. So yeah, this is summary of this weekend, I guess, from my point of view.
Well, it was absolutely fantastic. A great summary there, and I really do appreciate with regards to the teamwork between yourself and also Sherapinin, and the concept of making sure that you both get the maximum possible points for your respective championship campaigns. I do have to ask, however, looking ahead to round 3 in a week's time, we go to Bathurst for what is expected to be a very different kind of circuit, up and down the mountain. How are you feeling for the Australian circuit?
I'm feeling pretty great, as this is my favorite circuit in the game, I think. Maybe not only in the game, but just in general. And I think Bentley is a really good car there, so I should have an advantage. And if I put enough practice into it, I should be pretty confident in getting a podium there, or even a win.
Oh, well, we look forward to seeing you take to the Australian circuit, but until then, congratulations on the second place once again, and we look forward to seeing you in a week's time.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And just in case, as you might be awaiting Danila, he said that he couldn't join because he needs to go really fast, and he doesn't speak English, by the way. So if you have any questions towards him, so you can ask myself.
Alrighty, I will do. I would be keen to know from him, obviously not now, but if he was to send to you and you could translate for me just his thoughts on what it was like to take the win at Kyalami, and we'll play those back at the start of what is round number 3 in a week's time.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it a bit, so technically he was preparing quite more than I did, and he did really good in the wet. He also prepared wet. He was going for the wet conditions, and he also scored pole position in the quali because he was prepared and stuff. Then the race, I think it was pretty easy for him in terms of the pressure, because he just got a gap in front of him. He got some gap from P2, and he was just driving his own pace. But as you saw in the end, me and Luke, we got right up on him, even though we were quite behind during the pit stop phase. So he picked not the best strategy to stay on one tires, and I think he could be nervous a bit. But yeah, I mean, after all, he can be happy with P1. He had enough pace. He managed his tires really good. He just, I think, needs to overthink the strategy a bit, because what was working before the 1.8 update, which changed pretty much the whole game, does not really work now. And yeah, besides that, he's a really good driver. Did a great job with walking with his tires, with keeping his pace. So yeah, I think he should be just happy with the quali, with the race, and should be looking forward to the next round. And correct me if I'm wrong, is he now the leader of the championship, or there is somebody else?
We'll have to wait and see about the one, because I think there's a couple of post-race stewarding events to just take place. But if he's not leading the championship, he will be very close to the top. But I'm sure we'll get confirmation in 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, I can expect that. Yeah.
Oh, but thank you for the insight with regards to Danila, and we'll do pass on the message to him. Fantastic drive from him and a great win, and we look forward to seeing him at Bathurst like yourself. But until then, I wish you both all the best, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Thank you, Paul. Wish you all the best as well, and have a good night.
Thank you. So hearing there from Ivan Shematinsky, very happy with that second place, and also giving not only the insight on his race and a brilliant summary, but also the insights from his teammate Danila Sherapinin, who played it perfectly on the night at what was Kyalami, with regards to the fact reacting to that qualifying session where it was, as Luke Whitehead said, it was a hot lap. You only had one lap, and every lap afterwards the conditions got worse and the average lap time got slower, and then it was a case that once you got that done in qualifying, just simply focusing on what you could do in the race in those dry conditions. Shematinsky being honest there and saying that he benefited from the instant between Mooney and one of the other drivers ahead, and giving him the ability to take 2 places and get right up into that battle for the top 5. But again, for these 3, they all had to bring it home. And Danila in particular being our winner, not taking the tyre change, which was critical in the end, enabling Shematinsky and Whitehead to close up, but he just managed to hold on. And fortunately, with Shematinsky playing the team role there, both of them trying to maximise their point haul, it worked out for the pair of them perfectly. But that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of tonight's programme. Thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out, our official Next Gen Racing website, that's www.nextgenracing.co.uk, alternatively our Next Gen Racing Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. I'd also like to say a big thank you to our partners, the SimGrid and Coach Day Academy. Their respective websites are listed there, without whom it would not be possible to bring you this series. And now we look ahead to next time when we head to the Australian circuit of Bathurst, Mount Panorama Raceway, for a tour up and down the mountain over 90 minutes of frantic racing action. We had a rather flat race in the season opener at Suzuka. We had the run up and down the hill at Kyalami, but now we ascend and descend the mountain, and who will come out on top? We'll have to wait and see. You won't want to miss it. Save the date, December the 7th, 2021. But until then, it's goodbye for me. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit. It's goodbye from us at Next Gen Racing, and remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, stay on track. Good night.